going to say anything for
Just
this
let me
entire
know when
stream.
we're
Okay.
live, okay?
Okay. We're definitely
I'll
not.
stop
Hey,
talking
everybody.
shit about that FD signifier thing that we did on. Oh, we're live. Oh shit.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Happy July 1st. That's right. We're just a few days away from America's birthday, baby. Look
Oh
at
yeah,
that.
July 1st. Wow.
Yeah. Ooh,
New month.
new month. But
Sitch
before
is
that,
super sad because Pride Month
what?
is over. He celebrates every day. he loves his Pride Month.
So you guys don't know this, but Sammy will decorate the apartment to be based
For
on like
Pride?
the theme. No, forever like the theme of like the month or the time of year, the holiday, right?
Oh, okay.
So like
Wow.
it's July, so everything will be America coded. But during June, since it was Pride, because we all know how big of an advocate me and Sammy are for Pride Month, everything was just rainbow colors. Like I just
Yeah.
walk in the room and it's like a rainbow threw up on everything.
It's great.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
Oh, well, okay.
It was beautiful. Anyways,
What are we
get a
talking
shoe thrown at
about?
me.
We got a whole host of stuff to talk about here. Birthright citizenship.
Yes. Birthright citizenship, Elon's attacking with Trump, and more. But first is an update on the nuclear sites, which is pretty interesting because there's always, there's this back and forth. Did the bunker busters, were they effective at blowing up the nuclear sites? Were they not effective at blowing up the nuclear sites? What's going on? And right now, for the first time, it's kind of fascinating. It's the first time that Iran has actually is admitting publicly that their nuclear facilities have been seriously damaged by the bunker buster bombs.
Wow. They
Very
spilled the beans, huh?
Yes. Government spokesperson Fatmeh, saying this wrong, Fatmeh Mohajirani also included an acknowledgement that Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz, the key sites of the Iran's nuclear program, have been seriously damaged by American strikes. So this is the first time I believe Iran has publicly acknowledged, because before they were saying, these weren't a big deal. Now it's kind of funny when Iran was originally saying these weren't a big deal, that the facilities were fine. They were saying that immediately following attacks before they actually even had anyone go physically and look at the sites. Because before the bombs actually dropped, Iran had like put dirt and concrete and other things like and sealed the sites, the underground sites, so they couldn't even check how the sites were, managed. And now they've had finally time to have like, try to dig that stuff up. People have seen this on the satellites. They've had trucks come and dig up the stuff so they can actually try to go inside. And they're acknowledging publicly that they've been seriously damaged.
Okay, cool. They checked it out. But look, I believe President Trump, and he came out and said they were demolished immediately. So
they knew on the second they happened. They knew.
What is the point of even this article? I mean, obviously we knew.
Oh, okay. Well, but wait a minute. But here's a question or a problem. So how do we? Because originally Iran has always has this attitude where they're like, we need to talk tough. We always have to put on this like tough facade. We totally destroyed America's base. They did nothing, right? They pretended like they did. So, so this is a very interesting, because why would they ever acknowledge this unless maybe, possibly, what if they're lying because they don't want another attack? Because Trump has publicly said, well, if the attack wasn't effective, would you attack again? Would you attack more? And he said, yes, of course. So how do we know that Iran is not just pretending like their sites were heavily damaged so that they say, oh, we surrender. Look, we're so helpless. Don't attack us anymore. Like it could all just be a ruse.
Don't you think Trump would know that? You can't get one over on Trump. Come on. He would know. He would look into their eyes and know that they were lying. Yeah. Art of the deal,
like
man.
He did with Putin, right? He looked
it's art of the deal. This is art of the deal, man. He knows.
I don't know because it's in Trump's interest. He's already claimed victory, right? So if Iran is claiming defeat, he's going to take it. He's going to be like, yes,
yeah, of course,
100%.
Right. Yeah. No. I think they were completely destroyed just because of the nature of the devices we used. All the research they did, these bombs were developed over decades just for this facility, right? They're tailor-made for this facility. So, they got the shape of the shaft, the shape of the cavern. They match the shape of the shaft to the shape of the cavern. They're like, they're
Mm.
getting ready to like just hammer it in there.
To
And
just
boom.
penetrate. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. These are the
Yeah.
penetrators.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
I think obviously they worked. I believe in
Uh-huh.
American know-how, American ingenuity.
Mm.
Everybody says the government can't get anything right. Well, look, maybe they not so good at vehicle registrations, but blowing shit up, hey, they're excellent at.
That's true. The American
Yes.
government successfully aborted Iran's nuclear program. Okay. We penetrated into the deep caverns of Iran
Hmm.
and aborted their nuclear facilities.
That's right. We're expert at abortion. We aborted that whole program.
There was an interesting report a couple days before this report today where Israeli officials were claiming that they had direct knowledge that that in Iran, lower ranked Iranian military officials were possibly lying to higher ranked Iranian officials, telling them that the damage wasn't that severe, which is kind of
Obviously,
fascinating,
look, that is their
right?
job. All of these people, their job isn't to discern what is real. Their job isn't to tell the news, the accurate information, just the facts. Their job is to sell propaganda to the people. So they ask themselves first, what do the higher ups want to know? What do they want to believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they just start spewing that information out. So maybe
I
they
get,
got
yeah,
this
but right,
wrong.
right.
Maybe they weren't maybe they said they were completely blown up, but the higher ups wanted them to say that they weren't, or maybe they. Oh my god! Maybe
You're
they
gonna
got
get
it
there.
incorrect.
Well, here'd be the irony, okay? Because I mean, this is kind of what happened with Putin too, is that he had a bunch of like people around him who are like, oh yeah, in and out Ukraine, 20 minutes, no problem. America's not gonna
Right.
care, right? They're just like buttering him up because he's surrounded by yes men, which is what
That's
happens,
exactly right.
yeah, which
Yes.
happens very often in these authoritarian regimes like Russia, Iran. And then, he goes and does it, and boom, suddenly, oh, it's not 20 minutes in and out. But so wouldn't it be ironic if like the underlings in Iran are like, oh yeah, it's totally fine, it's totally fine, like they're lying about it, right? So then the upper management of Iran is like, okay, well, we're gonna lie to America to tell them that it was severely damaged, just to trick them so they don't attack us. But then it turns
Yes.
out that that was actually the truth all along. So they're accidentally telling the truth when they think they're lying to us.
Oh, okay. I got it. So the lower downs lie to the higher ups, and the higher ups reverse it, but then they're actually telling the truth.
Yes, but because they were lied to, it turns out they were telling the truth by accident.
We're gonna have to get somebody in there. Don't we have some commandos? Can't we get Laura Croft to go down in there and raid that tomb
There you go.
and
Want to get
figure out
Laura
what's
Croft in there?
actually going on?
Black Widow. They can just jump in, karate chop everybody, shoot them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Figure it out. How many
I like that.
centrifuges are still up and running?
I like that. That's a good idea.
Don't they have a
Okay.
secondary port
What do you mean?
that they can go through? A bonus hole
Oh, a bonus hole.
to get down there.
Yeah, we gotta drop our agents in the bonus hole to check on the centrifuges. Sure. Make sure that the nuclear program is
Well,
really
look,
aborted, that there's no
you
signs of life left.
you don't have one entrance to your home, I'm assuming, right? You have a back door.
There you go. Send them in the
They don't
back
ha-
door. All
they don't
right.
have a back door for this facility.
Get them all
It's
greased up and send them in the back door.
well, I don't know if you have to grease them up. Come on.
They gotta be slick and smooth. They gotta get in and out without making a lot of noise. Okay.
A bonus entrance, let's call it. We got to get someone down in there.
We do gotta
Someone
get
deep
someone
down in
down
that
there.
hole
That's right. That's right.
to do an inspection.
Mm-hmm. Terrible. Terrible. Anyway, so that's just
Uh-huh.
your update on the nuclear bonus hole. All right.
Okay, perfect. So what do you think? What's your take on this? Obviously you don't like Trump, so you think obviously we didn't destroy it, right?
I think that it was really stupid for
Mhm.
people that are Trump haters to thirstily try to jump on the fact that the attacks were not effective just because they hate Trump.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
Because
Anti-American slop.
yeah, well, it's just like people they just hate Trump so much that it like overrides their better judgment of. I mean, you would like the attacks to be effective. not only would it prevent further conflict with Iran, possibly, but also it could disincentivize China and North Korea from
Of
starting some funny
course.
business because they have underground facilities that they think are safe from American bunker buster bombs. And if
Of
it turns out that
course.
this attack was ineffective, they're going to say, hey, we have a lot more impunity to do whatever the fuck we want. But if these attacks were effective, then they're going to think twice and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. They're going to be like, holy shit, we built this bunker underground and it's just like it's in an open field. They can
Doesn't
completely get
matter.
down to
Right.
us. Yeah.
Right. But in
We're
terms of the
accessible.
damage,
Dig deeper.
I've listened to a lot of people try to make analysis of it. I don't fucking know. I'm not going to pretend like I could, give any sort of educated guess on the situation whatsoever. I think
I
anyone
just,
that's trying to guess it doesn't know. It's just total chance, just random.
e- even if everything is just fine down there, right?
Hmm.
Nothing was destroyed. Everything is completely intact. Didn't they bury the entire entrance under 200 feet of rock and debris? How do you get down to it?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess a good question.
It
It's a good
just
question.
seems ridiculous to me that this didn't set them back at all. What? I mean, at least they got to excavate that shit.
Well,
Took us like 10 years to rebuild the Twin Towers, and they're just going to come in and be, oh, yeah,
right.
look, everything's fine.
Well, even if they were able to save the enriched uranium, which, people are
Mhm.
speculating about, um, whether that's true or not. And there's some question about, well, could they save the centrifuges? Because these centrifuges have that create the enriched uranium. They have to spin at like the speed of sound, and
Right.
they have to be like carefully calibrated in a row because they have to not only speed at the not they not only have to spin at the speed of sound, but then they have to like transfer the materials like very quickly from like one centrifuge to the other. And so it all has to be like calibrated so like crazy perfectly. And this is why when Israel put their little computer virus in Iran's nuclear facilities a few years ago, and it made them spin like slightly out of sync, they all just started like crashing into each other and exploding and everything because of
Yeah.
how like sensitive these materials to the equipment is. So, I mean, yeah, I would be skeptical that they could like quickly and efficiently be able to dismantle all the centrifuges and transfer them and set them up somewhere else. I'd be skeptical of that. So even if they were able to save the uranium material, um, it still would set them back because I don't think they'd be able to enrich it further.
And Israel killed all the guys that know how to set that shit up, too. They got
Yes.
all the nuclear scientists.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Look, I think it's ridiculous to think, oh my God, that we did nothing. It is
Well,
interesting that, I mean, this would be an act of war
mhm.
50 years ago, right? The world has completely changed where we can
Yeah.
be like, we're just going to go in there, we're going to fly over Iraq,
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
just
Who cares, right?
bomb the shit out of
Yeah, whatever.
Iran. We're going to turn around, cruise out. We're going to brag about it on the news the next day. And we're going to be like, yeah, no need to go to war. Thanks, guys.
Hmm. Hmm.
Peace treaty. Isn't it crazy?
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
It
this
is
is how you
interesting.
circumvent Congress. They're like, you need to go through Congress because this is an act of war. What, bitch? This act of war? What? We're just fucking around. We're
It's
not at war.
it it seems like it would be in Israel's interest, or at least not Israel, but Netanyahu's personal interest, I would imagine, to keep the war going as long as possible. So if Israel's not pushing heavily that that they were able to save their nuclear materials, that would be a good sign at the very least that they were not able to save their nuclear materials.
Mm-hmm. Are
So
they pushing it? I don't know.
not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. So but we'll
They're
see.
going along with the everything is great.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
We
Okay.
destroyed it. All right. Moving on. What's next?
There's
Elon
some more
Musk?
Elon drama. It's so interesting. I feel like there's all this Elon drama, and like everyone was talking about it, everyone was fixated on it, and then all the stuff with Iran like popped off, and we like forgot. It feels like a million fucking years ago, doesn't it? That Elon and Trump had this big fight.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Tesla stock's been coming back. But then Elon had to open his big fat mouth again, and geez,
Mm-hmm.
Tesla goes
Yes.
down again.
So the in talks about the big beautiful bill and it passing. the various houses of government, which Elon very much is against. Whether you love or hate Elon, you have to say at least he stands for what he believes. Now, what he believes could be wrong and stupid, but at least he stands for it. Okay.
Generally
He's
is
not
wrong and stupid, but
he's
whatever.
not folding. All right.
I mean, he knows how to land a rocket. I'll give him that much.
Right, right. So you have to I give Elon credit for standing up for what he believes. He's been very much against Trump's big, beautiful bill, and because it will add, Elon says will add too much to the debt. We're all gonna have this massive debt crisis in the future, and so
we're gonna be debt
yesterday,
slaves, is what he said.
Yes, we're gonna be debt slaves.
Slaves to the debt.
Yes.
Most of that's in his bank account anyway.
So yesterday, Elon put out an X post. He said every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame, and they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. Holy shit.
This is just so it's such a waste of fucking time.
It is pretty crazy that Elon is directly saying that he is going to actively try to primary or have maybe the Democrat win against every Republican who voted for this bill in the next midterm. That's pretty crazy.
I was watching this podcast with Kevin O'Leary, and he was talking about this metaphor of signal to noise and how people like Elon Musk, it's just all signal, no noise. He said, the Steve Jobs Apple guy, that he was about 80% signal to noise. So he's really high functioning. And noise is just like things you shouldn't give a fuck about, right? You should focus on what's important. A lot of times we can get dragged down in the things that are not that important, right? But I look at this situation, I'm like, this is fucking 100% noise. What the fuck, Elon Musk? He's completely on this project that just seems ridiculous to me. He's fighting phantoms.
Well, so you think the worry? Well, be specific and be clear. What you think? Because you think that there's a concern if the debt gets too large and the interest rates are too high, right?
Well, first of all, I think they could lower interest rates. They've been lowering interest rates all over Europe. It's crazy that they're not lowering interest rates here. It seems like it's political. It seems like the head of the Fed, Powell, doesn't like Trump calling him out and shit. I think that the rates should have been lower by now. So I also think the lower rates will lower inflation. So I think they've got that backwards, especially in a situation where we have a big deficit that we're forced to refinance constantly because that's government spending. The interest on the debt is government spending. If the interest rates go down, just like Trump said, if you lowered the interest rates, you'd save $800 billion. It's almost $1 trillion you would save just by lowering the interest rates. What's stopping us from lowering interest rates, right? People are worried about inflation. So, but I don't think inflation's really that big a deal. I think it's a lot. I think inflation itself is a huge deal. Obviously, it got out of control for a while, but I think it's kind of waning now as we ramp up production, as more and more is produced. So, but the idea that the deficit could be zero or should be zero, that's what the phantom is. That's a complete farce.
Obviously, that the debt should be zero. I agree as a phantom, but it does seem like if we're not lowering interest rates and the debt just keeps expanding, and
right now the debt is expanding because we're not lowering interest rates. What are you talking about? The debt is going to expand by almost $1 trillion just because they won't lower interest rates.
That's what I was about to say. Say, because I believe like one of the largest payers towards the debt is because the interest rates are so high. And yet for some reason, the Fed doesn't want to lower them. Trump has been screaming about lowering the interest rates this whole time. You had the press secretary come out and she was, you probably saw that clip where she's like reading off all the countries around the world that have, so much lower interest rates than America. And so the question is always, why are we doing this to ourselves and screwing ourselves over?
Turkey kept raising their interest rates because they were having trouble with inflation. And I think they might have even got their interest rates up to 80, 90%. Can you imagine 90% interest rate? And the inflation would just follow right behind the inflation was 90%, 100%, right? They
Mhm.
finally decided, oh, let's try something new. Let's lower interest rates. And the inflation went down. They completely make the argument that the interest rates track inflation. So if that's true, then we should set interest rates at 2%, right? And then you've got inflation tracked at 2%. That's what the goal is. The Fed's target rate is 2%. What are we at now? 5%. Oh my God. This right now, that means the economy is so productive that it can eat essentially a 3% higher interest rate than inflation. Just that's how productive the economy is.
Well, whatever. We can move on from interest rates.
Yeah. People don't follow. They're
Anyway,
not.
so in response to Elon saying all this, saying that he was going to
Mm.
actively spend his billions of dollars to try to primary Republicans if they lose their next elections, Trump put out a True Social post where he said, Elon Musk knew long before he so strongly endorsed me for president that I would strongly against the electric vehicle mandate. It is ridiculous and was always a major part of my campaign. Electric cars are fine, but not everyone should be forced to own one. Elon may get more subsidy than any human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa. No
My
more rocket
God.
launches, satellites, or electric car production, and our country would save a fortune. Perhaps we should have Doge take a good hard look at this big money to be saved.
That he's just going for the jugular now.
Yes. Yes.
These guys, this is hilarious. This is hilarious. They were the best of friends. All Elon wanted to do was gain enough political power so he could destroy the US budget. That's all he wanted to do. He wanted to fucking blow up the budget.
Yes.
He wanted to cut Social Security, which he's on record thinking it's a Ponzi scheme. This guy's just a fucking dick. This guy's a fucking dick. Okay?
Who?
I've
Who's
I've
the dick in
lost
this
all
situation?
respect for Look, it's difficult for me to say I've lost all respect for Elon Musk because I do respect the fact that he's an engineer. He knows how to land those rockets, right? I do think he's a genius when it comes to business, right?
Mm-hmm.
But his big mistake is to think all of the things he's learned in business translates into politics or government budgeting. It's a completely different animal.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is it weird that like well here's I guess the question. So in response to this, Elon Musk says, I'm literally saying cut them all now. We're saying cut all EV mandates. And Elon has there's been many clips people have been showing that for years, Elon has been in favor of getting rid of the electric vehicle mandate. And his argument has been he believes that since Tesla makes the best electric vehicle in the market, that getting rid of the mandate will actually help screw over his competition and help him gain a larger market share of electric vehicles. So it would make no sense for him to care about this issue. Right? That's the argument Elon's making. And he's been
Right.
making it for a while. So I'm inclined to believe that at least Elon thinks it's true. So I guess the question is Donald Trump just lying and trolling, saying this to Elon because he knows it pisses him off because it's so blatantly untrue? Or does Donald Trump, just because he's like, he just views everyone as operating the same way he does, he's just assuming that Elon cares about the electric vehicle mandate and thus doesn't care what Elon tells him and just keeps projecting this concern onto Elon?
That is a very tough question to answer because both seem immensely plausible. Like Donald Trump just really likes fucking with people.
Right.
And this would be a great way to fuck with Elon Musk, continually fuck with Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think he thinks in terms of everything is transactional. And I mean, Elon did a lot for him during the election, but I think Trump just thought all that was transactional too, right?
Right.
So he probably thinks Elon is a transactional guy.
I mean, I think everyone's probably transactional to some degree, right? But Elon's argument is that it would actually benefit him transactionally to get rid of it. Like he's
Right.
making an argument of self-interest. He's not making like, I will fall upon, the arrows of my own, losing money for the good of the country.
Elon Musk would never make an argument that you should do this because it would help me. He would, that's an argument that he just would be revolted by.
Mm,
He always wants to think he's doing the right thing. I'm doing this
right.
for principle, right? I don't care
Mm,
if this cost me all my money and my entire company, my reputation. I don't care. This is the right thing to do. So I don't think he would get rid of the EV mandate because it helps me.
mm.
Is he anywhere on record saying that?
He has said on record that get rid of it because he
It
thinks
would
it'll help.
actually help us.
Well, I don't know if he says get rid of it because it'll help or he says get rid of it and
It'll
it will
help us
help.
anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
exactly.
Yeah,
He
yeah, I
would
don't know.
definitely say that. He would say, "Look, you're trying to hurt me, Trump, but really what you're doing is going to help me." Ha ha ha.
Right,
Bitch,
right.
get rid
Mm,
of all of them.
okay.
Elon, I just when you talk about political capital, Elon Musk came to Washington and put all of his political capital down on the roulette table. Look, and he didn't even pick
He
red or
bet.
black. He picked like the fucking green square.
No, you missed it. I was about to make that same joke. I would say the problem was he didn't bet on red and black. He bet on orange.
Is it orange? I don't
He bet on
I don't know
orange and
what.
lost.
Yeah. Oh, because of the Trump.
Because it's Trump. Come on.
I'm trying to think of the color on the roulette wheel.
Yeah.
Roulette has all red or black, but there's one square that's a different color that
Mm-hmm.
obviously they hit. I mean, they probably hit it 5 times a day. It's a casino, but right, they hit it like point zero 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 zero
It's a
one.
green. There's
Yeah.
one green or two green spots or something.
So
Right.
it's ridiculous that you would bet on those squares, but people
Right.
do
Right.
because it's like 1,000 on your money.
Of
So,
course. Of course.
but Elon, what the fuck? This idea that would you want to take money from Elon Musk? Let's say, hey, I'm going to be one of the candidates that's going to run against these people in the primary, and Elon Musk is going to back me. Would you want to get in bed with Elon Musk at this point as a candidate?
No.
I sure as hell wouldn't. I mean,
Well,
I'd
it would
be
be
like,
hard because I mean he could give you so much money, but you're right. I mean, the backlash potential is like, oh god.
yeah, he sure until I mean, you basically be owned by him, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, nobody wants this.
Hmm.
So I just this idea he's creating a reputation for himself in politics. It's completely cancerous.
True.
It'll be interesting to see if this is remotely effective. I mean, he's saying he's going to start a new party, and well, you look, you're laughing already. I just this
Oh.
whole this is what kind of bums me out. It's very
Mhm.
blackpilling. The fact that he's getting caught up in this nonsense when I was fully on board with this project to get Americans to Mars. I guess maybe that became implausible or impossible now. So he's like, okay, well, I'll just fuck around in politics.
He could just go quiet for like a year and then just go back to his businesses. And I think people, they have short memories. They'll forget all this shit.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
oh, we're going back to Mars.
They already were forgetting it.
Yeah,
Tesla
after a
stock
couple
was turning
weeks.
around. Yeah.
Yes. And then he opened his mouth again and ruined it.
They're
So
saying this is all going to be over by July 4th, though, and the big, beautiful bill is going to pass. Oh, look,
yes, it will
another
pass.
5-day chart of Tesla where it's down 12%.
Right.
Buy
And
the
then
dips, guys.
I don't know if you saw, I don't want to play the video because the audio quality is so trash. I
Hmm.
fucking I hate this. Okay. There needs to be a rule. Stop asking the president
Well, he's
questions
next to a helicopter.
while he's next to a helicopter. It's like you hear, and then it's like,
Who the
Mr. President, Mr. President. It's like, oh my God, can he just like take like 5 minutes to talk like in a room with them first and then walk to the fucking helicopter?
You know, the super sad thing is that could easily be cleaned up, but they're so fucking thirsty for getting a story out before anyone else does that they're like, nah, we can't clean this audio up. It would take 10 minutes.
That's true. Listen, we're in the miracle fucking land of AI, and they can't clean up the audio to remove that sound. Oh my god.
I know they can't clean it up in real time.
They can't put it through the noise reduction filter. Come on. So
These people are still using post-it notes.
there you go. So as Trump was walking to a helicopter, someone asked him if if he was going to deport Elon Musk.
No
Which
way.
Don,
That's
yeah,
the best
yeah,
question.
yeah.
Turn the helicopter off for this one.
To which Donald Trump responded, "I don't know. We'll have to take a look." And then he's a very Trump response to that question. Yeah, I
Oh
don't know.
my
We'll
God.
see.
That's beautiful.
Then he said, "Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible?"
Yeah.
So to me, I mean, it's very obviously clear that there's not going to be an attempt to deport Elon Musk. That'd be stupid and wouldn't even make sense. They'd have to remove his citizenship first, which I know Trump administration has increased the amount of people they're removing citizenship from, removing naturalization ship from retroactively. But it's supposed to be for like people that commit like high crimes and do crazy shit, which Elon's just annoying. So I don't think that's gonna happen. I think he's just saying that to be, it's just a very Trumpian response. And the reference to Doge means what I think they might do, or what they're likely to do, is to say, okay, well, we're going to try to remove all government subsidies from Elon. We're going to try to stop, any government working with Elon. That is probably far more likely, and that's what he means when he says Doge is the monster that might go back and eat Elon.
Oh, okay. Because Doge is going to put him out of business.
Yeah, well, just
Doge
remove
is going to
his
cut his
subsidy.
subsidies.
Yes, because obviously Doge doesn't have anything to do with deporting people. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's all fun. It's all fun and games.
mm, mm. Okay.
Elon, I don't know that Elon's. I'll be interested to see how things play out in the next election, but
Mm.
I I think it's most likely that Elon will have trouble gathering candidates, competitive candidates against other people. So,
I agree. Okay, let's talk about birthright citizenship and the Supreme Court ruling that everyone's talking about. Oh my God, total Trump victory, Trump annihilation. It's all over.
oh wow,
Okay.
total Trump annihilation. I love
Yes.
this.
Well, that's
I
how
love
it's
how
being
you're
framed.
framing this.
That's how it's being framed. So I was curious if that's
Well, that's
actually
how you're framing it.
no. I don't know about you. I've
What?
been listening to a lot of right-wing pundits, and that's the way they keep framing it. Total Trump victory, total Trump annihilation. The left has been obliterated from space by a Jewish space laser.
Okay.
They said that. They said on Fox News, quote for quote.
I saw one
Oh,
video with Tim Pool where he was talking about linking it to abortion. So
well, we're
that's
gonna
really
watch some of
all.
that video because that video is very silly.
Okay.
So, but before we watch that video, let me just go into it and give an explanation because it is a fairly confusing issue. So I don't really blame a lot of people for being confused about it or getting key aspects of it wrong.
How look, this is the opposite of confusing. If you're born on American soil, you're an American citizen. How's that?
No. I mean the what the court said about the injunction, which doesn't have anything to do with the
Oh,
merits of the
okay.
case. See, you were confused too.
No,
There you go.
I'm not confused by the issue.
Okay.
I know
Well,
that part too, but
okay.
that part's kind of a side
So
quest. So,
if so, the Supreme Court the other day they ruled on so the Trump administration, when Trump first became president, he passed an executive order that was changing birthright citizenship. Okay. It was saying that birthright citizenship no longer existed. So in the beginning, if we start from the beginning, the 14th Amendment was passed in 1866, and it was interpreted shortly after in a Supreme Court case in 1898 called United States versus Wong Kim Ark. It was interpreted by the Supreme Court at the time that said citizenship was granted to anyone who was born in the U.S. unless their parents had diplomatic immunity or they were a Native American, because there's the weird things about Native Americans were like their own sovereign nations within the U.S., even though later there was a law that was passed that gave Native Americans citizenship anyway. So, but it was really more just saying like, unless you're the child of someone who has diplomatic immunity and you're born in the United States, you automatically become a citizen. Okay. This is what the court said in 1898. And so Trump then
What
passed an
was the
executive
purpose
order.
of the 14th Amendment? Like, why did it
So
even come up?
the original purpose, well, the 14th Amendment had a lot to do with when, after the Civil War, when slaves were being freed, slaves were not citizens technically, and their
Right, which
children
was
weren't
really
citizens,
weird.
which was
Yeah.
very weird. And so they're saying, okay, well, we need to grant citizenship to slaves,
Right.
right?
These stateless people are being born in the United States. We need to give them a state, right?
Yes, right, right. So that they have access to equal rights and the things that everyone else gets in the country.
Yep.
Hopefully. I mean, obviously, it didn't work out that well for a lot of black people for many, many years, but that was at least the goal, the idea. Okay.
Right.
So then Trump, when he comes into office, he issues an executive order that is basically, or not basically, it is nullifying the Supreme Court's interpretation of this law from over 100 years ago, and saying no, 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 that's not the law anymore. The law is now that the only way that you have citizenship in this country is if one of your parents is a citizen or a permanent legal resident of the country. Okay.
Hmm.
So that's what they said. Now, obviously, as soon as that passed, people immediately started to sue the government, saying, whoa, 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 the president doesn't have the legal authority to just declare an amendment, declare an interpretation of an amendment that goes against, 100 years of how courts have interpreted this amendment, since.
Why not?
Because there's this little thing called separation of
He's the
powers.
president, though,
Oh, okay.
Sitch.
Okay. Okay. Right. Because we don't elect kings, we elect presidents, and presidents aren't supposed to be the ones generally creating the laws. They're supposed to be the ones executing the laws. That's why it's the executive branch.
Hmm.
So,
Oh, I thought that meant they were the people who like executed people.
oh, well, they do all those things, right? They do all those
Right.
things. So, so the question is, okay, so what did the Supreme Court rule on specifically? All right. So when these cases came up, the people asked the courts. They said, okay, we think we're going to win this case, but it could take a while because it's going to go through, the lower federal courts. Then it's going to eventually go up to the Supreme Court. That could take months. It could take years. These things take a while. So while that's all going on, there could be a bunch of people born in the country who are now going to not be considered citizens by the Trump administration. So
Hmm.
they asked the courts, they said, okay, until, we figure all this stuff out, we're asking for a preliminary injunction, which means we're asking that the court say, until this case is actually settled, that the government can't enact, has to pretend basically like the executive order isn't real. There has to be a pause on the government acting upon Trump's executive order, essentially,
Until it's adjudicated. Yes.
until it's adjudicated.
The
Right.
rules stay the same until we adjudicate this matter.
Right, right. And the contentious part about this is that usually when a federal court issues a ruling, the ruling only applies to either the individual party, the individual person who's suing, or it applies to the district that the federal court exists in. Without bringing it up, the United States is kind of split into a bunch of different districts, different district regions, and so sometimes you can get a situation where similar cases will have opposite opinions by federal district courts. So depending on where in the country you are, you can have a different outcome. But with this case and with some other cases, this federal court issued a universal nationwide injunction, which meant it applied to everyone in the entire country, essentially. It said the Trump administration has to pretend, the government has to pretend like Trump's executive order changing birthright citizenship does not exist in the entire country. And that's what people were very up in arms about. And that's what the Supreme Court case was about. It was about, can these federal courts actually do these injunctions at all? Or is it actually illegal for them to engage in these nationwide injunctions?
Right. So now we're going to go into a conversation about standing, which obviously came up a lot during the election
Yes,
litigation.
standing came up a lot. There's a whole, I'm not going to get into it because it's actually super boring. There's a whole thing about like common law courts versus equity courts, and it doesn't mean anything woke. That's just the name about
Mm-hmm.
what it's called. Don't worry about it. But it's just this. It's all very like procedural and like cut, like very dry, and all this stuff about whether courts have the ability to do this or not, whatsoever. But so at the end of the day, what happened was the Supreme Court agreed with the Trump
Mm-hmm.
administration and said these federal courts cannot issue neither, and this is why it gets interesting, neither preliminary injunctions or even injunctions after the case. Okay. So the Supreme Court said, even if, and this is where it gets a little weird, even
New
if
precedent set. Wow.
you sued the government. Okay. So with this case, you basically had a combination of like, I think it was like five pregnant mothers who were not citizens. You had a immigration group. You had like three different states, and all their cases got mushed into one case. And the Supreme Court basically said, even if they won their case, it the lower courts cannot dictate what goes on in the entire country. All right.
Yeah.
So to give you an example, if Adam was empregged,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and he was not a citizen, and he sued the government and he said, I think Trump's executive order is illegal, and my child, my unborn child, when he will be born, will be a citizen. And the
My
court said,
butt
we
child.
your butt child, yes. And the court would, even if the court agreed and said, yes, we believe Trump's executive order was unconstitutional, he doesn't have the authority to do this. Adam's MPreg butt child is, in fact, a citizen. Even if the court ruled that, and this is where it gets a little weird, if someone else was pregnant, okay, if I was pregnant, just to make things fair, and I was an illegal citizen and I had a baby, my baby would still be considered illegal, even though Adam's was legal, because Adam
Mm-hmm.
was the named party in the lawsuit and I was not.
So it wouldn't change anything.
So it would
Everyone
only
would have
change
to
for the
sue individually.
right, right. And so this is where it gets a little. It's weird because it would create a very weird situation where you're like, okay, that doesn't really make sense logically, right? That you'd have the court say some laws unconstitutional, but then for every individual person, they all have to individually sue the government, right?
Little wacky, but I mean, it would
Yes.
cut down on a lot of these anchor babies.
Well, that is true. That is true. That's a good point. But there is an alternative. And this is why. So this would be, well, before I say that, this is why this is like a big win for the Trump administration, because there's been all these nationwide injunctions, not just for this case, but for many cases that have all been used to stop the Trump administration from implementing many of its policy goals and proposals and executive orders.
Yeah, these universal injunctions have been putting the kibosh on a lot of executive orders, from what they say.
Right,
I know the
right,
broad strokes.
right.
All there's
But
35 of them shot down from 5 districts.
yes, and that's another thing that comes up very often, which I want to address because people are getting this wrong.
Oh,
Um,
really?
is
The
well, they're not
35
getting
to
it
5?
wrong, but they're not understanding something. So one of the big complaints about this, which is a valid complaint, and people have been complaining about this for a very long time, is that you can do this thing where you shop for your venue. They call it shopping for venue or shopping for districts, where essentially if you're a left-wing organization and you want to sue the
You go
president
to
or you want to sue
Portland,
the government,
Oregon.
yeah, and it's a right wing, executive order. They're going to go to some district where you got the leftiest left judge imaginable who's probably going to side with you, and you're going to ask for an injunction, and you're going to try to win your case in that district. And then the same is true in the opposite, is that if you have a Democrat president, as happened under Biden in a case I'm going to bring up, um, the conservative anti-abortion group, they'll go to like Texas and they'll find some federal judge who's very right wing, and they'll ask for a nationwide injunction in Texas, right? And so this people are celebrating because they think that this Supreme Court case will now stop that, but they are wrong. Okay. So, and this is why I say this is not the total victory that a lot of people on the Trump administration or the Trump team are kind of acting like it is. It's definitely a victory, but it's not the total victory.
This is
Okay.
hilarious because I was just going to say, notice Sitch is saying Trump had a huge win.
I'm just telling you, I'm just saying the facts. I'm just
I
saying the
know.
facts
I know.
because the problem, I want to prepare people because a month from now or a couple months from now, we're going to be in the exact same situation. And you're going to see all the pundits. You're going to see Tim Pool. You're going to see all the Benny Johnson. You're going to see all the conservative pundits screaming that they don't understand why we're back at square one again. Didn't the Supreme Court fix this? And they're going to be uninformed. But you listening will be informed. Just say, oh, Sitch prepared me for this. I knew this was what was going to happen. Okay.
That's so funny because it just doesn't pay to be informed
I know.
because obviously that people are going to spin this like obviously Trump is having a big win and Sitch's TDS is spinning out of control. He's completely taking that win away from him. So.
Even it's funny because even if you watch the left's coverage of this, they're still spinning it as a massive win for Trump because they want to spin it like Trump is the evil authoritarian dictator and Supreme Court is enabling his evil authoritarian dictatorship. So they're spinning it the same way. They're just saying it from a negative light.
Okay? Right. It's going to into chaos and fascism and authoritarianism.
I'm just telling you what the fuck's going on. Okay. I'm just trying to explain to you what the fuck's going on.
No, I get it. I get it.
In the case,
I'm just trying to stay as uninformed as possible. So.
I know.
So people like me.
In the case itself, or actually, let me back up for a second. So now, because of what the Supreme Court did, there's 4 ways in which you can stop the government from doing something if you think they're doing something illegal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The first is you as an individual can sue the government. So if you as an individual sue the government, the judge still can do an injunction and stop the government from acting against you specifically as an individual. Okay.
So what about a revolution, though? That should be number 1.
Well, I'm not including that.
Overthrow the government.
That obviously is included. I'm only going to include things that exist within the framework of our legal system. Okay.
Oh, okay. So there's 5. Yeah, number 1, overthrow the government.
Yes.
Number 2, sue the government.
You sue the government, but it only affects you personally. All right. The second is if the Supreme Court rules on the issue, they still have the authority to issue orders that tell the government they can't do something for everyone in the country.
A nationwide injunction?
Yes. This does not affect the Supreme Court whatsoever. All right.
Do they still call it a nationwide injunction when the Supreme Court does it?
I don't know. Yeah. I would assume they do. They do. But the Supreme Court can still issue nationwide injunctions. All right. So they're not affected by this whatsoever. The third way is obviously Congress could pass a law. I don't think they're going to, but they could theoretically pass a law that gives federal courts the power specifically to do these universal injunctions. So if you get a big Democrat Congress in the midterms, they could just make a law that gives the federal courts this power specifically.
The district courts, wow.
Yes.
They're going to turn them all into little dictators.
Right. But the fourth, or I guess fifth, if we're including revolution, the last way, which is why we're all going to be back here in a month or less. Okay. Why we're going to be back in the exact situation in a month or less. Okay. Is class action lawsuits. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure most people have heard about a class action lawsuit. This is when a bunch of people get together to sue one party as a team. Right. You have some factory poisons a town's water supply. So then everyone in the town joins together in a massive class action lawsuit to sue the company. Okay.
Yeah. Every litigant joins together as long as they're suing for the same, the same yeah, exactly.
Right.
Same fault.
Now,
same damages.
Yes. They have to have very specifically like the same harm and the same case and the same damages to all be constituted together as a class that they could sue together as one big team.
But you can see that easily in this situation if it's people who are here illegally that have children. There's like millions of them.
Yeah, exactly. Look, he's starting to see the dots. Okay, starting to see the connections here. So what you can do, and the Supreme Court in the ruling that they passed down even talked about this still being the pathway forward. Okay, so the Supreme Court's not going to overrule this, or at least they're not acting like they're going to overrule this. Is that you can have a class action lawsuit that contains everyone that it could potentially contain, even if they're not like named parties. Okay. So for example, as you were saying, Adam, you can have a class action lawsuit where the class of people suing the government is every person who would lose or potentially lose birthright citizenship. You can do that.
Yeah. Everyone who's in the country illegally that has a child.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or actually even, and this is the Tim Pool video, even potential future people okay, you can sue on behalf of those people too.
Do they do that in the case of the poisoned water? Would they sue future residents?
They could if the water was still poisoned and hasn't been cleaned up. I assume you could do that.
Right.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
I don't know if they have though on that specific topic. But so what you would do is
Interesting.
so and this has already been filed. The ACLU and other immigrant organizations have already filed class action lawsuits against the government saying that Trump's executive order is unconstitutional, and they're including every person that this would affect and potentially affect in the future as one giant class. And here's where it gets important. Okay. If you do a class action lawsuit, that judge can still issue a nationwide injunction against the government.
Because that's not outside the Supreme Court ruling. Yeah.
Right. Because they're doing it to protect the entire class of people.
Right. And that class is everywhere in the United States.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, this is just a little speed bump for them. They're
Right.
like, tally ho.
So the question that you might be thinking is, okay, if that's true, Sitch, why did they not do a class action lawsuit from the beginning? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Just get around all this. Well, the reason is because when you try to do a class action lawsuit, you have to go before a judge and you have to get the judge to even agree in the first place that the group of people you're talking about constitutes a class of people
Okay.
who can all join together to sue a government or an entity. And that can take weeks or it can take months or sometimes it can take years. So they did it the way they did it to just make the process quicker, essentially, to just skip that step. And actually, the Supreme Court, in their opinion, was complaining about this, was that essentially there already is a mechanism to get these nationwide injunctions. It's through class action lawsuits, but they're trying to skip the process by doing it the way that they were doing it. So
They're
essentially,
cheating.
Supreme Court said, yeah, Supreme Court said you can't cheat anymore. You have to go through the proper process. You have to do class action lawsuits if you want these nationwide injunctions. So, go back and do it correctly.
Can't they judge shop and just go to someone who's going to speed the process up so it doesn't take
Yes,
years?
they can.
Yes.
Yes.
They're already going to do that.
Yes. Right. And so that's why I'm saying to everyone who's like, oh my God, this is like total, oh my God, Trump's, going to pwn forever. I'm like, I'm just preparing you emotionally and psychologically. We're going to be back here pretty soon because they can still shop for a judge in Washington State or Oregon or whatever lefty liberal place they want to go to with a class action lawsuit, and they're going to still throw on an injunction, and it's all going to just play out exactly the same way.
I've got those class action lawsuit letters before. But if I'm ICE, I'm just going to make up a bunch of those letters and say, are you in the country illegally? Do you have children that want to be U.S. citizens? Just commandeer.
Yeah, you see those commercials like, have you been harmed by taking this drug? Yeah, it's gonna be like, have you been harmed by the government? Yeah,
exactly. And then you just have them show up at the ICE office, and then you just deport them straight from there, right?
They don't need to do that because the thing is, like with the class action lawsuits that they advertise, they're doing that because in order to get to increase the amount of money that they can get from the company that they're suing, they need more people. Where with this one, no one's suing for money, so that doesn't matter. They're just suing get the government to stop doing something.
Well, don't tell the illegal aliens that, obviously.
Right.
You want them to show up, right? Tell them there's a big settlement.
There you go. Right. It turns out that this is all like a bait car thing. It's not, you see, like the ACLU.
Exactly. You get it.
There you go. So the ACLU, they're going to start sending out notices like, come to this location so you can be, part of the case to sue the government to make sure you get your birthright citizenship. But then then they show up and there's like a little like cardboard sign that says ACLU sign up. And then when all the illegals, walk into the building, like the cardboard sign falls over and it really says like ICE detention facility.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
What if ICE gets this list of the class action litigants? Oh my God. They're going to have a field day.
It's over. Yeah.
They're going to have a field day. They're going to be like, okay, we lost a court case. Your kid can stay. But that doesn't mean you can stay.
There you go. I actually do wonder what happened because in the original case, there was like 5 named pregnant
litigants
expecting mothers. I don't know what happened to them. Like, I don't know if they're going to get deported or not. So.
They're in an El Salvadorian prison right now. So
probably. They're in the maternity ward of the El Salvadorian prison for hardened drug criminal gang members.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yes.
So, and also did say there was a New York Times article that talked about this. They said in March of this year already, it says under urgent circumstances, courts can certify a class on the same day that a lawsuit is filed.
Oh
All
man,
right.
this is already.
So you're already seeing like this, yeah.
Yeah, the
So
writing's on the wall here.
this happened in March already. It says in March, when a lawsuit challenged the Trump administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport migrants, a court issued preliminary relief, such as keeping the status quo in place to prevent possible harm to the whole class before the certification process was even completed. So this could
Why
all
is everyone calling this such a giant victory?
because as I said, it is a victory. It is harder to get classification status. It does add time to the process, but it's not the ultimate victory because it's just going to slow people down when they kind of go after Trump.
Right.
But it's not the end all and be all.
Well, I guess there are other executive orders that don't have this class action component to it, right? So
It would right. It would
the
be
stays
like
that they were doing on those executive orders probably are going to be
mhm,
completely
they
removed.
could be right.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the birthright citizenship, it's not going to work because that's such an easy thing to classify, like this like
Right.
one
Yeah.
unit of or one group of people. It could be harder with cases like deporting people to CCOT and all these other things because there probably will be enough differences in every individual person's case and the accusations the government's making against them that they might not all be able to come together as a class action. So definitely would help and be a big victory for Trump on those cases. It's just not going to be a big victory on the birthright citizenship case. Probably.
Cool.
Okay. Let me see if there's something else in my notes that I missed here.
I mean, not cool. Everyone's going to be very mad.
Right. Now, I guess now we'll see because again, they didn't really rule on birthright citizenship at all in this case, which maybe was interesting or unusual. Actually, in not in Sotomayor's dissent, because this was like along partisan line 6-3. In her dissent, she claimed, I don't know if it's true, but she claimed that typically when the government goes to the Supreme Court and they ask about this, they try to get the Supreme Court to actually overturn the stay, not on the basis that the courts can not do this, but on the basis that the government's case is strong. And here, very interestingly, the Trump administration did not ask the Supreme Court to do that. And she's saying that they're not asking the Supreme Court to do that because they know that their case sucks and that when this eventually does reach the Supreme Court is going to say no, the president does not have the authority to override, the Supreme Court's interpretation of the 14th Amendment from like 100 years ago.
So they think they have a weak case on birthright citizenship.
Yes, that's
So a
what she's
lot of
claiming.
people are saying that Ketanji Brown Jackson is a big stupid person,
Mm-hmm.
and her dissent was completely retarded.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that wrote the majority opinion also was dunking on her in the majority opinion, saying, "Oh my God, how retarded this justice is."
They
So
did.
do you know about that situation? Just so we
Yeah,
can,
Amy Barron,
yeah, Amy Barron, Amy
Barrett. I was
Cohen
saying
Barrett.
Amy Cohen Barrett. I was saying her name wrong. Yes. Who? It's funny because like I forget what case it was, but it was like a few weeks ago. All the MAGA people were like hating on her because she sided against Trump, and now they're
Right.
all cheering for her because she's dunking on on
Now
Jackson.
this is white on black violence, right? This is
It is.
technically racist. So
Yeah, it wasn't like it's funny from a Supreme Court perspective. I guess it was like a massive dunk, but
mhm.
like from our perspective, it's not some massive thing or something.
Yeah, I heard people reading
Okay.
it and they were super playing it up, and I was thinking, I mean, she didn't call her a bitch or a cunt or anything,
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, she said something like, I'm trying if I can find the quote. She said, rhetoric aside, Justice Jackson's position is difficult to pin down. She might be arguing that universal injunctions are appropriate, even required, whenever the defendant is part of the executive branch. We will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. Boom. We observe only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. Bam.
Yeah. I mean, that's
So,
pretty good.
well, yeah, from a Supreme Court perspective, usually like the Supreme Court justices are like seem like they're pretty nice with each other, even when they disagree with each other. So it is pretty hilarious and weird. This is like really, it seems like they really don't like each other where they're throwing that shit and saying like, oh, her dissent is trash. But
Jackson wants a king. She just wants a king to be in the judiciary, not
now
in the executive branch.
there was something else about Justice Jackson's dissent. I don't know if you saw it, where people are accusing her of using AI to write it.
No. Really? Oh,
Yeah. So,
terrible.
well, I guess I should say not Jackson, but her staff. So if you guys don't know this, the justices rarely write their own opinions. They have staff that writes their opinion and they tell the staff like, here's what I want it to say. And then their staff goes and does it essentially. Um, but there are some weird things in her opinion that people point to, like the way in which it's written, that they're like, this feels like it's generated by AI. There's some hallmarks there. So that would be pretty hilarious if she has to come out and admit that her staff used AI to write a Supreme Court opinion, which would be pretty fucking terrible, obviously.
I mean, she just fire a staff member and it'd be done. So,
Sure, sure, but you don't want like because there's a huge problem right now in the legal system where lawyers keep getting smashed left and right because they use AI to write some kind of brief or something, and the court
right.
finds out, and
And
they,
it's completely ridiculous.
yeah, it's got some fake citations or bullshit in it, and they're just like, "What is this crap?"
I've given the AI some really super easy problems and it just fucking fails. So, I don't know if I'd even trust it at a calculator level.
Um, I mean, I found it's been pretty good when I actually I don't really use it to do math very often, only occasionally, so I can't really comment on that.
Right.
You always got to check. I found that like if you insert a document into AI and you say summarize this for me, it's usually pretty good at summarizing
Mhm.
that document.
Oh, yeah.
If you start asking it, and then if you ask it to search the web for things, it's pretty good at that, or at least ChatGPT is pretty good at that. If you start asking like very specific questions for very specific citations, I find that's when it starts making shit up.
Right.
It'll be like just crazy. But so that's what the case is about. They didn't actually rule on the concept of birthright citizenship, which we should briefly talk about because if you don't, everyone gets up in arms about the whole concept. And I understand that's the more interesting part of the debates rather than this whole like nationwide injunction stuff.
Yeah.
Personally, my
That's the
opinion,
boring part.
yes, personally, my opinion on birthright citizenship is I actually agree with the way that Trump administration wishes it was. I do think you should have to have at least one parent be either a citizen or a permanent legal resident in order for the child to have citizenship. I don't actually agree with birthright citizenship. It leads to problems like anger babies and birth tourism and all this other stuff, and it just doesn't make sense anymore. Maybe it made sense, in 1868 when it was passed and it was amended to the Constitution. It doesn't make sense anymore. So I think it should be changed. However, I also don't think that the president has the authority or should have the authority to rewrite the Constitution or rewrite a Supreme Court opinion on their own. That is a complete that goes against the entire way that our separation of powers exists. The president doesn't have the authority, nor should they have the authority to do that. So even though I agree with what the Trump administration wants, I think they have to do it the correct way. They have to get Congress to actually, in the states, to actually amend the Constitution to change the law. He can't just do it himself.
So it should be changed, but it should be changed in a way that is impossible and will never happen.
No, it should be changed in the proper way.
The proper way that's
Yeah.
impossible and will
You
never
think it's
happen.
impossible?
Fuck yeah, it is. There's no fucking way that's going to happen.
We
Constitutional
we amended
amendment.
the Constitution to make alcohol illegal, and then we amended it to make it legal again.
That was just a different time.
Here's
I
the
don't think it's
problem.
possible. I
Okay,
don't
with
think it's
whether you think
possible
it's,
anymore.
regardless of whether you think it's possible or not. Say the Supreme Court says, you know what? We think the president has the authority to overwrite the Supreme Court and the Constitution and amendments, right? The president has the power to interpret amendments however the fuck they want. All right. Supreme Court says that. So what happens in 2028 when AOC becomes president and she says, you know what? I'm going to interpret the Second Amendment to mean that you can only have a gun if you're part of a state militia. If you're not part of a state militia, it's illegal for you to own the gun. And I'm going to order the ATF to go around the country and collect every single person's gun who's not part of a state militia, effective immediately. And if you resist this, you're going to federal prison. And the Supreme Court says, well, I guess that's okay because we said Trump could reinterpret the 14th Amendment. So I guess AOC can reinterpret the Second Amendment.
Never happened.
Why not?
Well, AOC doesn't have that kind of moxie, and it wouldn't have popular support.
It doesn't matter. That's the law. The law has to apply. The whole point of our framework of law is you're saying here's a set of rules and they apply to everyone. If they say Donald Trump can reinterpret amendments, reinterpret Supreme Court cases, and just make amendments whatever he feels them, then you're giving every president after that same power.
So you think Roe versus Wade was bullshit then?
What do you mean?
It didn't go through a constitutional process. It was like a reinterpretation of the Constitution where it basically
Roe v. Wade wasn't
dragged in this implied idea of privacy. Like it was completely maneuvered.
Yes, I agree completely. I think the original, and that was part of the thing. If people want to compare this to Roe v. Wade, it's a bad comparison. Roe v. Wade wasn't a law. Congress did not say, all women have a right to abortions. The courts, in a very, I would say, stretchy,
politically
bending over
motivated
backwards way
yes.
tried to interpret, interpretations of the right to privacy, which I don't think is even directly in there, but has been interpreted itself.
Of course not.
To somehow include abortions, right? And so therefore that makes sense. If the later Supreme Court says, okay, like that's like a huge stretch that was ever put in there in the first case. Legal scholars have always said it was a huge stretch that was ever there in the first place. Anyway, it seemed to be pretty solidly agreed upon. And so they said, okay, we're going to get rid of it. This is a different situation. This is a situation where you have a very clear, clean reading of the amendment says that everyone born within the jurisdiction, which we'll get into because that's where the really bad arguments start to form, is an American citizen. And the courts have all upheld for hundreds of years that means every person born here who's not that doesn't have diplomatic immunity is a citizen.
As far as stretchy,
all legal scholars agree that's
I get it.
Interpretation.
Look, we're in total agreement. Situation. We're in agreement. It's a stretchy interpretation of the Constitution. Okay. As far as stretchy interpretations of the Constitution goes, is the birthright citizenship more or less stretchy than the Roe versus Wade abortion stretch? Which is more stretchy?
1,000 times less stretchy.
The birthright citizenship is less stretchy.
Yes.
In fact, I totally agree.
Yes.
I completely agree. It's a tiny little stretch.
It's not. There's more there's more disagreement and contention about the meaning of the Second Amendment by far than there is for the 14th Amendment.
Oh, of course. And which is why I said it wouldn't have a popular appeal if AOC did it.
No, but what I'm saying
is the birthright citizenship, I think it would have popular appeal, and people are generally pragmatic. I think the Roe versus Wade had popular appeal, and that's why they were like, well, it's a stretch, but let's go with it.
Right.
No way we're getting a constitutional amendment up in this bitch.
I think they could change birthright citizenship because, as you said, I think it is popular appeal, and I feel like most people would agree with changing it because of that. But the point is, like with Roe v. Wade, there's a lot of stretchiness to get the original thing. With the 14th Amendment, there's really no stretchiness, and there hasn't been much contention about it, except for a handful of people. With the Second Amendment, there's a hot debate on it, with one side very clearly saying that there's stretching and one side saying they're not. And so if you were to say, well, we think that the president can do this based on the stretchiness of some, barely stretchiness of the 14th Amendment, you are opening the door for presidents to do the exact same thing for the Second Amendment or any other amendment after this.
Well, the president doing the stretch, I think, is obviously I would be more in favor of the Supreme Court having to approve the stretch. So it's not directly I think obviously the Supreme Court is the interpreter of the Constitution. So if there's any stretchy interpretation of the Constitution, the 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 SCOTUS is the final arbiter, right? Obviously not the president.
Right. Well, that's another good point too, is that it's the courts are supposed to be the people interpreting the law, not the president.
Right, but the president can throw out some wild executive order as their interpretation of the Constitution, and the SCOTUS has to sign off on it. The Supreme Court has to sign off on it or shoot it down. So ultimately, the authorities with the SCOTUS, not with the president.
Well, when you say ultimately, I mean, it depends, because you can say, well, ultimately, even if the Supreme Court tells the president to do something, the president could say, I control the military, I get to do what I want, right? So ultimately, within the legal framework we have, yes, you're correct. The SCOTUS has the ultimate authority to say whether some president's actions are legal or not.
Right, but I mean, obviously, matters of war are also laid out in the Constitution. So how they conduct the military, I think, is in there. So they have some latitude for interpretation. But you understand what I'm saying. I'm not in favor of the president being able to interpret the Constitution and be the final say. That's not his job. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
so in the situation with AOC could come up with this harebrained interpretation of the Second Amendment, right? But ultimately, the Supreme Court would have to sign off on that, and it can't just be done by executive order.
Yes.
We're in the same situation. Look, everyone knew that the Supreme Court was going to have to sign off on this interpretation of birthright citizenship, and they probably wouldn't. But now I'm not so sure they won't. I think they're like, we stretched a lot for Roe versus Wade. Let's stretch a little for this.
I think, well, it wouldn't be a little stretch. It'd be a massive stretch to do this. I think a likely scenario is that when this eventually the Supreme Court rules on this, I do think likely 9-0 says that Trump can't do that. He doesn't have the authority to do this, or that he's
really
wrong. Yes. At a minimum, I think it'll be 7-2. I think there's like a no fucking chance that the Supreme Court's going to sign off on this change whatsoever.
7-2,
they're not going to sign off on I don't think they're going to sign off on the mechanism of doing it through an executive order, and they're not going to sign off on the interpretation. In fact, I mean, you might get a weird situation where they literally don't even adjudicate on the issue. They just say Trump doesn't have the authority to do this, period. And that's all they say. They don't even adjudicate whether, the interpretation is correct.
The interpretation? They don't lay out.
They might not. I don't know what they'd do.
Would you give me odds on this if we bet?
I will give you odds on the 9-0 or 7-2. I'm not going to give odds on. I don't know what the odds are on the jurisdiction.
Well, look, I'd obviously be taking the side that they win. So
okay, I'll give you. Yeah, I will bet. You want to bank a bet on whether Trump wins that case? I will give you that bet.
I think we're in a completely different world now, and the world has changed, and I don't think you've recognized it. So that's what I'd be taking advantage of with the bet, because, well, look, obviously Roe versus Wade happened at one point because of popular demand, and you already admit that it was a giant stretch, right?
Right.
Yeah, a far bigger stretch than this stretch would be. So it seems like the Supreme Court could come out. And look, everyone was shocked when they overturned Roe versus Wade.
Wait. I think maybe I misunderstood what you're saying. I think it was.
I'm saying that the Supreme Court is going to sign off on birthright citizenship being abolished.
I think it was a bigger stretch. Okay, I misunderstood what you were saying. I think it was a. Do
you think birthright citizenship is a
10,000% bigger stretch for the Supreme Court to make this ruling about people having a right to an abortion? I think that was times 10,000 a stretch. If you were to say to the original ruling of the Supreme Court saying that the 14th Amendment includes birthright citizenship for everyone, I'm saying that was 10,000. I'm saying abortion was 10,000 times more stretch than the original ruling saying the 14th Amendment includes birthright citizenship. Okay.
The abortion ruling was a novel interpretation of the Constitution.
Yes.
Far more than the birthright citizenship executive order is a novel interpretation
No,
of the
I'm not saying that.
Constitution.
I'm saying I was
Okay.
comparing it
You're
to
saying
the
the
original.
opposite.
Right. I'm saying the opposite of what you're saying. I'm saying the
Okay.
original case was not a stretch that the Supreme Court said include. They gave very good reasoning and logic and evidence for why that is included, why birthright citizenship is obviously part of the 14th Amendment
In previous cases, but now
right.
you're comparing
Right.
apples and oranges. I'm
Now,
talking
no,
about
no. I was
Roe
comparing
versus
one.
Wade.
Wait, stop. I was
They
comparing
would
one Supreme.
okay.
Stop. Just listen to me.
I
Because it's
know what
confusing.
you're saying.
Okay. I was
I'm
comparing
not
one Supreme Court
confused.
case to another. Okay. Now, what you're saying is comparing the Supreme Court's interpretation to Trump's interpretation. I'm going to say the opposite of you. I think Trump trying to change a fucking Supreme Court case that has been grounded in law and everyone's accepted for 100 years is as much a stretch or even more stretch than the original Roe v. Wade case.
Well, it has to do with the case itself. I'm talking about the interpretation of the birthright citizenship clause in the 14th Amendment. I'm not talking about the case law around it.
I agree.
They would say we got the case
right.
wrong. They got the interpretation of the Constitution wrong. Then that case basically would be overturned. They would overturn precedent exactly the same way they did in Roe versus Wade.
But Roe v. Wade wasn't overturning precedent. It was just declaring the case had never been, there hadn't been anything about it. It was just kind of like the first time they were really adjudicating it, the Supreme Court level.
Okay.
So I think that adds to it versus them overturning something that has been established law, an established interpretation of law for over 100 years.
Ultimately, the bet would be that the SCOTUS overturns birthright citizenship and agrees with Trump versus they keep birthright citizenship.
Well,
and you would win the bet if they keep it, and I would win the bet if they lose it. You said you'd give me odds.
Yes.
How about 100 to 1?
Who gets
give me
odds?
some good odds?
Oh,
I get
you get the good odds. Wait, you seem so confident. Wait, you seem so confident. Okay, in your position. Why do I have to give you 100 to 1 odds? You give me 100 to 1 odds
because you're way more confident, and it's more likely that the Supreme Court is gonna not overturn it.
Look
right?
at this. The confidence is going.
You have
down
inertia. You have inertia on your side.
No. Listen, I'll bet. I'll do a 1-to-1 bet with you on this.
You just said you give me odds. You can't. You can't take no take back.
I'm taking it back. I didn't understand what you meant. I didn't understand what you were
got to at least give me 2 to 1. You said you give me odds. Now you're like taking back the odds.
It's not because I'm not confident. It feels unfair.
Ridiculous.
It feels unfair. Okay, we've talked a lot about the importance of fairness.
I think you're getting wise to the fact that it's unfair to you because I'm going to win the bet.
Well, any 2 to 1 odds is unfair, obviously.
Not when you're so confident. What happened to your confidence? You had such confidence.
Why don't you give me 2 to 1 odds if you're so confident?
You are the one that came in here so confident. I'm just trying to make things interesting.
Yes. Look at he's trying to gaslight me. He's trying to manipulate me. Okay, listen, we can
hold
bet
on
on
a second here.
Adam,
I started the confidence
won.
level. I started the confidence level at 100 to 1, and you're like, nah, I have zero confidence.
You've already won our last bet. You should be you have so much confidence. Okay, the chances are on your side.
What? Look, I haven't done
side. Your predictions about Trump.
You understand the way more. You've done a lot more.
So
true,
listen,
very true.
So there you go. So you should feel so confident if you want to bet me some money on the outcome of this case.
If I bet $100, I'd rather win $200 though. So why don't you just give me 2 to 1 odds?
Look at this guy. Look at this guy here. Okay.
Let's go $50 and you give me 2 to 1 odds. If I win, if you win, I pay you $50. If you win, you pay me 100.
Let's go $100 for both of us.
You gotta give me odds. You said you would give me odds.
I don't want to give you odds because then it feels like when I win, I feel bad. Okay.
You literally said you give me odds.
I don't. If I win and I give you odds, I still feel shitty because I'm like, oh, right. And I don't. That doesn't make any sense.
But
I want to feel good. And
you have to admit,
face.
You have to admit, I'm going with the less. I'm going with the worst team here. You've got the best team, and it's a 1-to-1 bet. That's why they do odds. You don't think
it is. You think you're on the side of. What do you mean? You think you have the best team? What are you talking about? You just said the world has changed. The ring of
Oh
power has
my
been found again,
God.
Sitch.
Oh my
Okay, and Donald Trump
God.
has found it.
I'm betting on the underdog so I can get some odds here, okay?
Look at this
Obviously.
guy. Look at this guy.
Oh, you want to switch it up then?
Yeah, sure. If you
You
want, we
want
can
to take
switch it
my
up.
position and I'll
Oh
take
no, I
your
don't want to
position?
take your position. Fuck your
Okay, so
position,
what's the
stupid.
problem then?
Listen, we don't.
Obviously,
I'm just gonna
that's why
say
you're giving me odds.
I will accept a bet of $100 or more as long as
I
the
don't
odds are 1 to
I don't
1.
know a good sports team, but there's good sports teams and bad sports teams, right? You're asking me to take the shit team and not get any odds on it. Normally, when you take
Okay.
the shit team, you're like, okay, I'm going to get
How
18 to
about
1
this? Someone in
odds,
chat
right?
said, Sitch, give him 1.1 odds. Okay, I'll give you a 1.1 odds. You like that?
1.1? What the
Yes.
Mark? I thought we were friends. Mark, I
I'll
thought we
give you
were
1.1
friends.
odds. All right. Okay.
How about one? How about 2 to 1 odds? I
I'll give
like
you
2 to
1
1.
1.1. All right.
Oh my God. That's not even, it's not worth doing the math on.
No, it'll be $100, so I give you
Hmm.
$110.
I'll take the original bet, the $100.
Right.
It's okay.
Mhm.
I like you. If I have to give you $100, it'll be fun.
Okay.
I got 500. I'm still working off the 500 I got for winning the Trump bet. So
Lethal
I
Strength
can
for
lose, I
$10
can lose
says,
some money.
Lethal Strength for $10 says, I get this $10 back if Trump wins. There you go.
Okay. Look at
DC
that.
for
That's
$5 says,
exactly right.
Sitch, just pay JMac the extra money when you win. I'm sure Dad would appreciate it.
Everyone heard he would give me odds. Everyone heard that.
I did. I
Like,
misspoke. It was a mistake.
what's going on?
I was confused.
Why is his confidence?
Look at this guy. He's trying to trap me. He's trying to trap me.
As soon as he realizes money's on the line, his like confidence just
Right.
nosedives. His
Uh-huh.
confidence is
at this
deeper
guy.
than a bunker
It's
buster
so obvious.
in the middle of
It's so
Iran.
obvious. You're so obvious. Okay.
What do you mean I'm
You're
obvious? What are
so
you talking
obvious. You're so obvious with this manipulations.
about? His confidence is buried
Uh-huh.
inside a nuclear facility.
You're the one that has so little confidence
Tehran.
that you want a 2 to 1 odd in the first place.
I just want to win more. I'm confident I'm going to win. I just want to win more money.
Okay. Brian for $5 says we need a third-party arbiter to adjudicate your interpretation of the odds. Maybe a Supreme Court, Supreme Chat Court. There you go. I agree with that. We need a Supreme Court to rule in on this poll or this.
Well,
bet.
I think we should put a poll up and ask the audience what they think is a more stretched interpretation of the Constitution, Roe versus Wade or birthright citizenship.
Right.
Because I think obviously people are going to say, oh yeah, Roe versus Wade is way like out in left field interpretation of the Constitution. They bring in this thing called privacy, which is just implied in the text. This is just an interpretation of one word.
It is and it isn't. Well, because I agree with you. It is in terms of that, but it isn't in terms of A, not questioning Trump's authority to do that, and then B, the way in which it would be.
Saying,
it's not irrelevant. The way in which, because they could not even adjudicate on the issue. And B would be the fact of overturning something that has been seen not a shaky precedent like Roe v. Wade, but is seen as very solid precedent for 100 years. And the court would basically do that, I think, would be pretty fucking crazy.
Here is why Trump is irrelevant to the argument, okay? Congress could come out and write a law that says there is no more birthright citizenship. And
they couldn't. They'd have to have the Constitution.
Exactly. That law would be challenged, right? And the Supreme Court would have to weigh in on whether or not that law was constitutional or not. They could word it in a way that tried to make Trump's interpretation of the 14th Amendment. So obviously they would have a dialogue on what exactly the 14th Amendment means. There's this previous precedent in this other case that does it one way, but they could overturn that precedent. So then in that situation, Trump wouldn't even be involved. That's why there's two separate issues here. You keep saying
I know there are.
The issue of executive power, and I'm saying take that out of the equation. The question is whether or not the Supreme Court, who does have the power and could reinterpret the 14th Amendment and overturn precedent.
I understand that. I'm bringing it up because remember this came up in Trump's election case where he, there was some state that sued some other state about, saying there's some problem with the way they were voting in the election stuff. And Supreme Court didn't even hear the issue. They just said on a process level, they didn't think it made that the state even had jurisdiction to sue each other in this capacity, right? So I'm saying it's possible that when the Supreme Court hears this case, they just make some procedural argument about Trump's executive order and says
they wouldn't have that luxury if Congress made a
no, they wouldn't. I understand.
law.
So you're just saying hypothetically. I understand. You're saying hypothetically, if Congress passed a law, they'd actually have to adjudicate the issue. There'd be no procedural.
Of course, they'd be forced to. Like, I agree, because it's an executive order. They could punt and say, we're not going to answer this. Let Trump think whatever he wants. We don't want to get involved. Obviously, the next president's going to come in and overturn this shit. Unless it's J.D. Vance. He's going to be like, re-up. I have a second executive order here.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, the difference is, again, it's why I feel confident in my feelings on the issue.
But not real confident, because he doesn't want to do the 2-to-1 odds.
Is because the court originally crafting Roe v. Wade was the crazy interpretation. The 14th Amendment is not a crazy interpretation at all. So this court would seem like the crazy fucking court to reinterpret the 14th Amendment. It would be like Roe v. Wade in reverse. They would be the court doing the crazy interpreting that would get overturned the next time.
I completely agree, but it's immaterial because
I see what you're saying.
What does the temporal aspect of this have anything to do with it? The court,
because I think justices think about this stuff when they give their rulings. They care about their legacy the same way Trump cares about his legacy.
Do you think people are thinking about the Roe v. Wade court's legacy? Nobody gives a fuck.
No, I think people aren't. I think the individual justices care about their legacy a lot, and they don't want
that is why they did this.
Overruled.
This is why they did their wild interpretation, because they're like, I care about my legacy. I need to let people know women need the right to have an abortion. Right? These justices are going to say, I care about my legacy. We need to get rid of this birthright citizenship. It's destroying America. I want to be remembered as the justice that stopped this evil scourge on our country. That's the legacy they're going to be thinking of. They're not going to be thinking of, oh my God, I'm overturning precedent.
No. And I'm going to say it one more time, and then we just disagree. That's okay.
Okay.
I'm just telling you from a lot of things that I've read and heard judges talk, judges do not like, even, judges don't like when courts overturn their opinions and says, you're fucking stupid and wrong. Judges really don't like that. And to me, they do this, including the Supreme Court, they do consider that in their legacy when they make their rulings about whether they think their things are going to get overturned or not. All right. So that's all I'm saying.
In the hierarchy of importance, I mean, we totally disagree. I think that's a lower down the hierarchy.
I'm saying it's based on hearing judges talk about this and reading a lot of text about judges' feelings on this. All right. I understand it's an issue that you and a random person would just be like, why do they care about that? I'm just telling you, that's what they care about. Okay. From their own position.
It's funny what you're doing, because you're basically coming in here and you're saying, look, I have a lot of experience in this. I've read a lot.
I've read many books, is what I'm saying. I'm doing an Adam. I've read many books on the topic. Okay.
I know a lot of I've read a lot of stuff from these judges. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, how many judges have there been on the Supreme Court? Sitch?
There you go. Blonde for $2. Sitch. Never tell me the odds. I like it.
How many? Look, expert. I want to ask my expert friend, how many judges have been on the Supreme Court?
Okay.
What? You don't know?
I'm sorry. I didn't listen. I was reading chat. I don't know what you said. What'd you ask me?
I'm pulling a Tucker Carlson here.
Okay.
How many judges are on this? You don't know?
Right now, there's 9. What do you mean?
You claim to know judges' legacies, and you don't know how many judges have been on the Supreme Court? But
like the entire, like overall, I don't fucking know.
Look, you're making a claim here that
I like this.
all of the judges
It's true.
so care about their legacy and being overturned, and you don't even know how many judges have been on the Supreme
It's
Court.
true. That's like, you
How
know
could
what?
you know this?
I
How many
concede.
judges?
I
How many
concede
judges have
everything.
you read?
You
And how many
destroyed
have been
me.
on the Supreme Court?
I don't know how many total judges there have been. I don't know the
Sitch has
ethnic
read.
breakdown.
Where's the 0.1?
I don't
Where's
know
the
the I
point
don't know
one
the ethnic
percent?
I don't know the ethnic breakdown of the judges. I don't know the gender breakdown of all judges forever. It's just
Sitch has read
yeah, you
point
got me.
zero 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 zero
You got
one
me.
percent of the judges that have been on the
I'm a
Supreme
thank
Court.
you. I'm a sleazy
And
feline. You
judges,
got
and
me.
he's out here
Sleazy feline. I
selling
got
it.
felined.
He's
Got
out here
me.
selling it. I know the judges. I know what the judges care about. I'm an authority.
Wait a minute. Let me pull Ted Cruz here. Adam, how many judges have there been
How many judges have there been?
in total?
90.
Yeah.
You don't know this? Are you kidding me?
Is that real?
How do you not know?
Way more than 90. That can't be right. How many?
America's only been around. They have a lifetime appointments, Sitch, obviously.
That's true. This says 116. Bitch.
I mean, oh, well, look.
You got it wrong. You failed the Ted Cruz check. You should have asked AI before you did this, fool.
First of all, I didn't count the first 26 because obviously they weren't worried about their legacy, okay? They weren't They weren't worried about their legacy at all.
The entire time you were messing with me. You should have looked it up.
I can't believe I got as close as I did. I mean, that's not. I was pretty close. I was only 26 off. Yeah,
you did pretty good.
Better than you. So now that we know it's 116, how many of those have you? How many of those have you? Do you know? Care about their legacy?
I actually
reading their opinions.
I've talked to all 116 Supreme Court justices personally. Mm-hmm. Okay, and out of the whole 116. 90% of them said that they cared about their legacy and not having their rulings overturned.
Well, look, I mean, if you've got personal interviews with all 116 Supreme Court justices, who am I to argue against that? It sounds like you're on firm ground here.
There you go.
The kind of ground that would easily give odds in a bet about the Supreme Court because they're so expert. But let's just see if he does give odds. Sounds like he's not going to do it. So. There
you go.
All right, the bet is we're betting $100.
$100. 100 clams.
That the Supreme Court. And look, it's a wash if the Supreme Court doesn't weigh in at all. I mean, they've got to do a wild, and they have to affirm the previous precedent and throw Trump under the bus, or they have to take his wild interpretation and overthrow the previous precedent.
You're saying if they punt, I understand. You're saying if they punt, then neither of us.
If they punt, yeah, because I mean,
I think if they punt, I should get $50.
I think if they punt, I should get the whole bet. I should get $100. So,
okay.
I don't think a punt is a win, but
so I just want to read something too because I actually was reading through the original Wong Kim article
as we were arguing.
No, not while we were arguing.
Earlier.
Okay, that'd be impressive, but no, earlier, and because the whole thing was about. Not the whole thing, but a big part of the case was what does the 14th Amendment mean when it talks about jurisdiction? Because people have been making an argument that illegal immigrants are not under the jurisdiction of the country, which doesn't make sense to me at all. Because obviously, if you're an illegal immigrant and you're in the country and you do a crime, the government has the jurisdiction and the authority to throw you in prison. So that doesn't make sense what people are talking about. But this did come up in the Supreme Court case. And this is what they said back in the 1898, whenever this came. It said, in short, the judgment in the case of the exchange declared as an incontrovertible principle that the jurisdiction of every nation within its own territory is exclusive and absolute and is susceptible of no limitation not imposed by the nation itself. That all exceptions to its full and absolute territorial jurisdiction must be traced upon by its own consent, expressed or implied. The exemptions from jurisdiction of foreign sovereigns, which is like royalty, or their armies entering the territory with permission, and of their foreign ministers and public ships of war, and that implied license on which so he's saying that, you know, royalty, their armies, if they should come here with permission, and foreign ministers are stated exemptions from sovereignty. Then he says, however, under which private individuals of another nation enter the territory and mingle indiscriminately with its inhabitants for purposes of business or pleasure can never be construed to grant to them an exemption from the jurisdiction of the country in which they are found. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So he's saying very clearly that if
What's
you are
that
a
from
private,
that you're reading?
this is the original Supreme Court case on the 14th Amendment.
Right. This is the one that they would overturn.
This is what they'd have to overturn. So they're saying that very clearly, if you're a private citizen, a private individual, and you come to a country for business or pleasure, you can never be exempt from the jurisdiction of the country that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the Supreme Court would have to say those bitches got that wrong, and that you are totally not under the jurisdiction.
Right. They'd have to reinterpret jurisdiction to mean something completely
You're
different.
under the jurisdiction of your home country, right? And you're under temporary jurisdiction of the United States.
Right. They'd have to
and then they'd bring this entire concept of temporary jurisdiction is implied in the Constitution because it's just in there between all the words.
Exactly. Yeah. They'd have to come up with some weird thing. Yeah. And then
But
it goes, I'm not going to
could.
read the whole thing, but it's, and they even go on to explain how within the language of other laws at the time, including ones that had to do with immigration, that the Congress did use the language of jurisdiction very clearly to just mean exactly the same way it means, having, you know, being within the physical bounds of a country and having authority over you. And then they continue to just talk about how that is the most clear interpretation of the law. So,
all right.
Lethal Strain for $5 says, if they can't be drafted by the U.S., their citizenship is not under the jurisdiction of the United States. Jurisdiction of law is completely different. Incorrect. You're completely incorrect. That's completely different. People who are citizens and not citizens, different laws and different things apply to them differently. No one's suggesting that otherwise. But someone who's in the country, anyone who's in the country who does not have diplomatic immunity is under the jurisdiction of the government.
Well, foreign dignitaries aren't.
That's what I said. Obviously. Anyone who doesn't have diplomatic immunity. That's the whole point of diplomatic immunity.
Totally. So. Lets them get.
And then they also bring up
murder people.
They also bring up in the Won Kim Ark conversation about how, I talked about this weeks ago, whenever this first came up, how you can even go back and look at the Congress arguing about the language in the first place. And there were people who were against the amendment because they were against the concept of giving immigrants into the country their children's citizenship. So the idea that no one realized what this was about at the time is obviously bullshit, because people were literally arguing against the amendment because they didn't want to give people citizenship that were immigrants.
Yeah, they argued it in great detail, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, just like you and I argue in great detail. So it's pretty obvious what's going on.
Now, there is one caveat here, and this is what the people that are against this will argue, is that at the time that this amendment was passed, I don't believe there was anyone that was considered an illegal alien at the time as a classification. Like, the government could kick you out of the country, but there had not been, the amendment had passed. This court case happened after the Chinese Exclusion Act, but the amendment was passed before the Chinese Exclusion Act. So the one caveat that people are going to try to grab onto is they're going to say, well, at the time that the amendment was written, there wasn't actually a classification of illegal aliens that existed.
Right.
So that's what they'll try to argue, though I don't think it's going to be effective because, again, it all hinges on what the word jurisdiction means. And the court case is very clear back in those days that jurisdiction just means you exist within the physical territory of the government's control.
This is going to be fun.
It's going to be.
Are they going to hear this
a tourist can't, Lethal Strains for $2 says a tourist can't be drafted but can be jailed. Correct. Yes. Because when a tourist comes to America, they are under the jurisdiction of the government. Correct. Yes. Okay.
All right. Are we going on to super chats or?
We can. There was a there's a weird Tim Pool video. We can watch some of if you want. If
Okay.
you don't want to watch it, we
I'm
can skip
game.
it. So,
I mean,
where it
I
talks kind of
watched
about
it.
this. Hmm?
I watched it, the Tim
Okay.
Pool video, where he
Yes.
likens this to the abortion situation. You can't
Right.
have your
Yeah.
cake and eat it too.
Right. Right. And I'll explain why Tim Pool is completely wrong about this.
As it is, they want to have their cake and eat it too. And the ACLU
I'm going to be right back.
is exemplifying this perfectly. They sued the Trump administration over the Birthright Citizenship executive order, and in doing so, may be about to end abortion forever. Now, maybe not literally, and the probability is probably very low. But on Friday, with the Supreme Court...
See, look, there you go. That's king clickbait right there, right? And I applaud that. It's like, will this actually happen? Well, probably not. But I'm going to throw in the title and let's talk about it to get a bunch of views. So I give Tim props for that.
That's a Tim Pool-ism right there. He's so good at that.
Yes.
He's like, this is going to change everything, but probably not.
Yeah, right.
It's so
Perfect. Yes.
basically saying Donald Trump can executive order the birthright, citizenship, whatever. For now, we're not answering the merits to that. It's created this temporary space where the Trump admin is saying we are not going to grant citizenship to the children of those here illegally. I think even legal immigrants too. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But it's mostly about illegal immigrants, people who are here illegally or whose fathers are not lawful citizens or lawfully present. The ACLU, in their argument, said that they must certify a class of persons for this suit because of the Supreme Court ruling, and that class of persons is all future persons. I kid you not. Potential humans being represented before this court. They mean the unborn babies. Get legal representation. Okay, so basically, they're so the Supreme Court says universal injunctions are out. You cannot apply a district court's ruling to the entirety of the country. And that's kind of obvious because the way that these liberals are trying to set it up, like Sotomayor, Kagan, Jackson, they're basically saying Jackson's was nuts because she was just like district courts dictate over the executive branch. And every other justice was like, no. But it was funny. At least you got Kagan and Sotomayor being like, well, if the district courts can't issue these injunctions, I mean, then how do we, Yep. It was funny. There's a viral video where apparently just a couple of years ago, Kagan was arguing you can't have lower court judges.
Okay. Well, anyway, let me skip ahead a bit. He's going to ramble for a second. So
I'm back.
Okay. So we're going to talk about this future persons thing. So you can see this is what I was talking about. This is why the ACLU is filing this as a class action, because that's the only way they could possibly get an injunction now.
No, I'm glad you set it up because
Right.
Totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
3 people sue, and then a district court judge says, I hereby say Trump can't do this nationwide. But we have circuits for a reason. There are jurisdictions by which judges have authority. And then you go up to the higher courts, and the Supreme Court then is the entirety of the country. It makes sense. The reason why district courts can't issue nationwide injunctions is obvious, because that means I would sue to a court in West Virginia, living up in the mountains, and I'd say, well, gosh darn it, I need me a machine gun because I got a bunch of feral hogs. And then they're going to say, good point, Cletus, and they're going to bang their gavel, and they're going to say, you can have a machine gun. And then what? And they're going to put a universal injunction on the NFA, and then some dude in New York City is like, I'm going to go buy a machine gun? No. The courts in West Virginia addressing a singular West Virginia issue is going to be for West Virginia or the circuit they're in.
So Tim is incorrect. I mean, he's correct in terms of like that is a thing that people complain about. And I don't know what the clear answer to that problem is, because it is a problem. But he's incorrect in terms of if you do file a class action lawsuit for anything, the judge still can issue currently a nationwide injunction. So if you had some class action lawsuit in West Virginia that said everyone gets, everyone human that wants can own a machine gun, can own a machine gun, that would affect the entire country. So that's the way it is currently. So he's incorrect that this has been stopped. It hasn't been.
Right.
It's just changed the circumstances. And in terms of competing judgments, this has happened before. I think it happens somewhat commonly. It happened recently in 2023. I don't know if you remember the one of the abortion pills or the day after pills, mifepristone. They had a situation where someone was trying to argue that it should be barred, or should be made illegal. And they had a case that was being simultaneously heard in like Texas, and also I think it was in like Washington or some other part of the country. And on the same day you had in Texas, they came out and they said, oh, well, mifepristone should be, considered an abortion and it should be illegal, or that the FDA shouldn't be approving it or something. And therefore, I'm going to order a nationwide injunction that says no one can get this, abortion pill, essentially. It's what they said in Texas. And then at the same time, you had the judge in Washington say, this is totally acceptable and fine, and everyone should have access to this abortion pill. And so what happens when that situation arises is that then the government goes to an appellate court or the Supreme Court, and they say, hey, we have these conflicting cases. You need to do a quick, adjudication on this to see who is correct. And that's what happens. They do a rush job, and they basically rule on which district had the correct answer according to their opinion.
Do you know which way it went in the abortion pill case?
They said that I believe they ruled in favor of the abortion pill continuing to be allowed.
Free abortion pills for everyone.
Yes.
Good job.
It makes no sense. Well, let's expound upon this. While this judge says, why can't you have a machine gun? You got a feral hog problem. And then in New York, a judge goes, no, we don't have any feral hogs here. All guns are banned. And then you've got two simultaneous judges simultaneously saying guns are both banned and not banned. So which one is it going to be? That's stupid. There's a reason why the system was built the way it is. The Supreme Court, there's nowhere else to go. They're one court. They say, it's it. That's it. With district courts, there's 677. It's the stupidest thing imaginable. But anyway, so they say no universal injunctions, and what do we get? The ACLU then says, okay, we will file a class action, and because the way it works is one person suing, the courts can only grant relief to those that are suing. That's what the Supreme Court said. So the ACLU says, then we'll make a class for a class action suit and sue on behalf of, quote, all current and future persons who are born on or after February 20th, 25. Okay, that means somebody who's going to be born on March 15th, 2092 is represented in this. I kid you not. They're arguing that humans that don't yet exist are part of a class of people that have legal standing to sue and be represented before the Supreme Court.
Okay, so there's an issue here that Tim doesn't realize, which is why they have to do it this way specifically. Because if it was just people that were currently born, right? So you have babies that are born after the change, and then they're not considered citizens, and you're just suing on behalf of them. Okay, let's say that's the way that they did it instead. It would create this weird situation where if they won that case on a lower federal court says, hey, you guys are correct. Donald Trump is wrong. He doesn't have the authority to do this. He's misinterpreting the Constitution or whatever. Everyone that was born at this time period is granted citizenship. Okay. Mm-hmm. If they don't include future persons, it only includes the people that were born at the time. It means every single person that's still born after that is going to not be a citizenship, not going to be a citizen still. And so you'd have to do this court case every fucking, year for every current generation of people or every current group of people that are born, which doesn't legally make any sense. Right. If the court says that this action, that the president was wrong, it applies to everyone. It's going to apply saying that they were wrong in this interpretation. It should apply to everyone in the future. It wouldn't just say, well, that only applies to everyone currently. every year you're going to have to keep resuing the government just to make sure that it doesn't apply to every new person born, right?
What about people in the past, though?
Well, the Trump executive order is not retroactively removing people's citizenship.
Okay.
So if it did, it would include people in the past. And then an additional problem to that, which Tim has not realized here, is that if they were only suing on behalf of current people, it would actually create a bizarre situation where the government they could just accept the ruling and not appeal the case. And if the government, so like, for example, if it was just current people born and you sued the government and the lower court said, the president is wrong, these people have birthright citizenship, boom, okay. And the Trump administration says, we're not going to appeal that. We're going to accept that judgment, okay. That means that every year, new people would have to keep suing the government because future people wouldn't be included in that judgment, and it would never go to the Supreme Court because the only way it goes to the Supreme Court is if they appeal the original case and it goes up the chain. If they never appeal it, it doesn't go to the Supreme Court. And so it'd be forever stuck in this weird limbo situation where people have to just keep suing the government again and again and again and again and again and again for the same issue, which would be stupid and waste of everyone's time and money.
For citizenship.
For citizenship, right.
Or they could just quit asking.
Right. So, but that's why you have to do this future persons, because if you don't do future persons, then the government could be incentivized to never challenge it. So then the Supreme Court would not actually hear the case, which would be dumb. So
they laugh at the game they are now playing and the door they have just opened up. Future persons, huh?
So all this is basically bullshit then, this whole Tim Pool video.
Yes, but he's gonna make an argument about abortion. I'm gonna explain why it doesn't apply here either. So
okay, then I want to see every single conservative and every single pro-life group right now file with the exact same class. I mean, look, it says in this class action.
Here, let me jump ahead. You kind of rambles for a second.
Unlawfully here for literally illegal immigrants, and I'll explain. But with that exact class, file a suit saying you can't kill future persons, saying we seek to represent all current and future persons born on or after, making the argument that they have a right to life, to be free from third-party decisions to terminate their life without adequate due process or just illegal outright, as it would constitute assisted suicide. And watch them squirm and scream and argue, you can't have that class. That's the play. The reason why, some might be saying, well, but you should have it include all people. Right. Politically, yes. What I'm saying is copy their class verbatim, because I guarantee you they'll come out and argue against that class. They will say, no, that can't be a class of people because they don't exist. They're not really people. Unborn babies aren't humans yet. You can't even tell the difference between an elephant fetus and a human fetus. And then say, fair point. I guess you can't have a class of people. You can't sue, and Trump can end birthright citizenship. Or
okay. There's a problem with this argument, all right, about this future person's argument, which is that they're not, he's made the mistake because the Supreme Court has never ruled on whether fetuses are people and have given personhood. Because remember, this is the big argument the pro-life side has been fighting for forever, and they've never gotten that, is that they want to define unborn fetuses as people. If that was the case, then you could make this argument, but that's not the case. Fetuses are not considered people, and they are not granted personhood rights, obviously, because if fetuses were granted people, then you couldn't do an abortion because they'd be considered murder. But
he's messing up the category of future person. A future person is a person that's born in the future, not a fetus.
Not a person who will become a person in the future. Right. So, because this is where Tim is fucking up here. Because with birthright citizenship, if the person is pregnant, so they have a fetus inside of them, and they enter the United States, that fetus doesn't automatically become an American citizen, does it? It's only when they're born at that moment that they become an American citizen and they're granted the rights of personhood and all these other things. Okay. When they're a fetus, they don't have any of those rights. Exactly. And so, as you completely correctly nailed it, for future persons doesn't mean potential persons. It means people in the future who are actually people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you wouldn't do, it would make no sense for you or anyone to try to do a lawsuit where you say, oh, I want to make it illegal to kill future persons, because it is already illegal to kill future
it's called murder.
Yes, it's called murder. Right. So I don't know. I just thought it was weird and kind of silly that Tim goes on this like super long rant about how this is going to make it so that, they can, they're going to, they got tricked into, doing it so that they can make abortion illegal. And it's like, no clue what he's talking about.
I just like the funny voices that he makes and stuff.
That's true. That is fun.
When he's talking about the liberals.
Right.
They say, fine, we agree, future persons have a right to be represented in court. And then you can say, future persons having legal standing as confirmed by this court. Let's roll, baby. You can't kill someone before they've gone to court. You can't kill people, period. So this is an incredible admission.
Yeah, you can't kill people, Tim.
You're
correct.
Can't.
You cannot, yes.
By the ACLU and the left on the issue of abortion. They can't have their case.
Okay, let me jump.
Well, his argument, though, is they've messed up. They've admitted that they believe fetuses are actually future people.
Right.
That's the argument that he makes in the video.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Which they did not actually admit that.
Fucked up when they dropped this case. We got him on a technicality.
Right.
I mean, it is good content. Good content is people want to believe certain things. Making content that makes arguments for things that people want to believe is good content. It's just a shame that what people want to believe is so far from the truth. It's so far from actual reality.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right. No, that's a good point. Just call me the wet blanket, because I'm gonna smother all.
Yeah, this is why our content always sucks. This is why nobody wants to watch our show, because we are definitely the wet blanket.
I'm just telling people what is true. All right.
I know, but people don't
look.
People want to believe what they want to believe, and they want to believe that is true.
Okay.
So when Tim makes an argument that a bunch of dumb liberals filed a case that accidentally proved that they know fetuses are people, oh my God, that's exactly what people want to believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's true. That's a very good
brilliant.
Point. It is brilliant. This is great. That's why I said Tim is very good at content. Okay.
Yeah.
He's very good at content.
He just asks himself, he's like, what do people want to believe? And he makes content to cater to that. We have to, unfortunately, ask ourselves, well, is that actually true? And then all of our content sucks.
I know.
Then all the content is like, we can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn it. It's interesting. Tim, he reads the first section of the 14th Amendment, and he brings up a point. He doesn't connect it correctly, or he doesn't see where it would be heading in his mind, but he does bring it up, which is, if you read the first section of the 14th Amendment, it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Okay, so that's the contentious it's the contentious part, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. What does that mean exactly, right?
Oh, of course.
Does it mean just like the physical location, or as some people want to say, well, if you're in the physical location but you're a citizen of another country, you owe allegiance or sovereignty to the other country or something, so you're not technically within jurisdiction.
You've got dual jurisdiction.
Yeah, exactly, right. But if you continue reading, it says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. So it says citizens, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within jurisdiction the equal protection of law. So this is where it's interesting.
Because
So
they
very clearly,
give them jurisdiction right there.
right. So very clearly, this section 1 makes a distinction between persons and citizens, right?
Yes.
And it says that citizens are granted something extra. Okay. It says the law shall not abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens, but it shall not deprive any person of life, liberty, or property. Okay. So it's saying citizens get this extra little bit, but any person in the United States gets these other things, life, liberty, or property. And then right after it says without due process of law, nor deny any person, not citizen, any person within its jurisdiction, the equal protection of the law. So very clearly within the language of the 14th Amendment, it is using jurisdiction to mean physical location. Because otherwise that last sentence would make no fucking sense.
Yeah, it claims jurisdiction over the person too.
Yes.
It's just implied.
Yes.
Completely implied. So that's hard. You got to argue against that last sentence as well. Yeah. But look, we can do it.
Okay. Let's watch the commie mayor guy.
Yeah, we haven't talked about him at all.
We haven't talked about him at all.
And he's like the gift that keeps giving. Who gives a fuck about the mayor of New York? What the fuck?
Well, he's like, I don't know if he's the first commie mayor, socialist mayor, but he's obviously the first socialist mayor of like a large city. So it is important. It's an important thing to like have in our minds, right?
I mean, it's kind of a good thing though, right? Because neither one of us live in New York City.
That's true.
I guess his actual justice warrior, our friend Sean, lives in New York City.
He's not gonna be happy about it. Right.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking this is a perfect experiment, right? Does communism lead to total destruction?
Right.
And we'll know soon enough, right?
That's true. That's true.
When it leads to total destruction of New York City, everyone will be like, okay, well, look, it didn't work. Of course, everyone's going to be like, well, that wasn't real communism.
Right. Okay, so here he is. Here's Zoran on Meet the Press.
Welker. It's Kristen Welker.
That's Kristen Welker. Isn't she your favorite?
She was the one that did the first interview with Trump and had the nice legs. I remember.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wrote about your proposals. They say a massive minimum wage would depress low-skilled employment. His rent freeze would reduce the housing supply and decrease its quality. Cutting bus fares would leave a transit funding hole that, unless somehow filled, would erode service. Meanwhile, the grocery business operates on thin margins, and his plan for city-run stores would probably lead to fewer options, poor service, and shortages. Mr. Mount.
Okay.
All true.
Even the Washington Post, which is probably the most lefty national, syndicated newspaper that people talk about in the country, even the lefty Washington Post is like, everything this guy's saying is fucking stupid and retarded. It's not going to work.
Right.
It's so hilarious to me.
You think he's just saying it to get elected, or you think he's actually going to try to implement this shit?
I think he's going to try to do it.
Really?
Yeah, it's going to be a disaster. You think he's going to try to do it and it's just going to be business as usual? He's not going to implement any of it?
Yeah, I mean, probably. He's probably not going to do any of this shit. He's probably just saying it to get elected. It seems like Trump is really the only president that's really gone for his campaign promises. You think he's going to go full Trump and just like, yeah, we're doing this shit? I mean, this stuff seems impossible.
If he didn't even try to do this stuff, I can't see him getting reelected.
But the whole left runs on victimhood culture now. All he has to do is say, oh, I tried, but look, everyone stopped me because I'm brown. I'm brown and I'm a Muslim.
Yeah, that's possible. It's possible.
And they're going to be like, oh, yeah, look, we still love you, even though you couldn't do anything because of systemic racism.
It will be... If he doesn't do any of the things, that would be hilarious too, because we will get like the amount of crying we will get from Hassan and all those people about like, oh my God, We trusted Bernie and he fucking failed for us. We trusted Zoran and he failed for us. There's nothing we could do. We got a revolution now. Ah.
They blame AOC the same way, right? AOC was
it-
supposed to be a big
yes.
radical change, and they're like, oh my God, she's an establishment now. All she cares about is her position.
It will totally break their brains completely if he doesn't try. It'd be very funny. I actually kind of hope that happens because it'll make them so depressed.
How do you do any of this stuff?
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. I don't think he has the executive order powers that the president has.
Mm-hmm.
Donnie, are your proposals going to hurt the very people you're trying to help?
Not at all. There have been many in editorial board who have had concerns, and what we've shown is that more than 400,000 New Yorkers are excited about this vision. And the reason they're excited about it is one that is in line with the scale of the crisis in this city. I mean, we are talking about our tax base growing smaller and smaller each day, with New Yorkers leaving to New Jersey, to Pennsylvania, to Connecticut. If we do not meet this moment, we will lose this city. And our proposals are ones that are thought out. They are ones that are also clearly going to be funded by these revenue streams. I'll give you an example. When we talk about...
Are you hearing an answer to any of these things? How are you going to implement any of these things? Or are you just hearing like politician like bullshit? Everything we're doing is very good and going to help the area.
Well, how is this going to result in people sticking around? I guess I wasn't really
wonderful.
I guess the question is, how are you going to implement this stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, which he's not giving an answer whatsoever.
He's saying people are excited.
Yes.
To have these policies.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, well, all those people, I mean, it's like a lot of free stuff, right? Of course they're excited.
Elect me, Mayor, and I'll give you everything you want for free.
Well, look, ultimately he's saying he's going to bring down the price of groceries. That's what he's selling. The way he's going about it with the public option for groceries, obviously I think is terrible and is not going to work. I agree with the Washington Post. It's a terrible idea. But what he's selling, they don't care about the public option. They care about lower grocery prices. How are you going to get me lower grocery prices? So I don't think any of his policies will work.
Right.
I'm interested in if he is going to answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
Grocery stores. I've put forward a proposal for a pilot of one grocery store in each borough. These are 5 grocery stores that would cost $60 million in a city budget of more than $113 billion. And ultimately, the reason that we are so excited by them is we've seen that they've worked in Kansas. We've seen that when a feasibility study was done in Chicago, it was shown to be something that was not only feasible, but pressing and urgent in an urban setting. And finally, it costs less than half of what the city's already set to spend on subsidizing corporate supermarkets without any guarantee of cheaper prices, any guarantee of collective bargaining agreements, or that they accept SNAP or WIC.
Well, you take me to my...
Why are they subsidizing corporate grocery stores? What's going on there? Is that for EBT?
Probably... Because it's probably not feasible, as you were talking about. Well, I mean, with rent, it's so fucking high. And margins for grocery stores are so thin as it is, and rent is so high in New York City.
Well, I don't know what he's calling subsidies of corporate grocery stores. If he's saying we give out EBT cards,
right,
and people buy their groceries at the corporate grocery stores with those EBT, I mean, that's not really a corporate subsidy.
No.
They could go anywhere. They could go to the mom. Well, I don't know if the mom and pop shop takes EBTs, but usually they do.
Next question about grocery.
But the difference between giving someone money to buy your groceries to subsidize people who are starving or low income and opening a whole fucking, you're going to go into the grocery business? Like, it's just, that's night and day, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're going to compete with these other industries who are already in the grocery business and have a ton of experience in the grocery business. You're going to hire grocers? What the fuck? How does this make any sense? And you're going to do it for just 60 million?
Yeah. 5 for 60 million.
I'm skeptical this is going to work.
So CNN said, Mamdani has not released all the details of his plan yet. It's not clear what role New York City would play in opening or operating the grocery stores. Would it build stores, lease them out to a private company or a nonprofit? Would the employees be on the city's payroll? Mamdani's campaign did not respond to CNN's request for more details on the proposal.
Yeah. I'm skeptical that they will be able to compete effectively with the free market. It's so bizarre to me how much Democrats hate the whole idea of the free market when the free market is basically systematically the same as democracy. It's like companies have to appeal to millions of customers in the same way politicians have to appeal to millions of voters. They fucking love democracy when you talk about it in terms of appealing to voters, right? Populism. Right. But as soon as it's companies appealing to customers, they're like, oh my God, evil capitalists. They're making a profit. This sucks. Ah. It's the same principle for decentralizing power, though. It is. Obviously, if they're bad at appealing to those millions of customers, they go out of business. But the government, they're not going to go out of business if they're bad. They're just everyone's going to suffer through.
Stores, some executives, including one of the top grocery stores owners, billionaires threatening to shut down his supermarket in the city. John Catsimatidis, who runs Gristedes grocery chain, you're probably very familiar with him. He said this on Election Day, quote, if the city of New York is going socialist, I will definitely close or sell or move or franchise the Gristedes locations. In order to run New York City successfully as mayor, do you not need the support of a billionaire businessman like John Catsimatidis?
I don't know if I need his support specifically, but I want to make clear that my vision for this city is a vision for every single New Yorker, including business leaders across the city. And the reason I say that is that my proposals, even the ones to increase the top corporate tax rate of New York to match that of New Jersey, are ones that would also benefit those business leaders. Because when I have conversations with them, what I also hear is the just how expensive this city is preventing them from attracting and retaining the talent they need to grow their business. And ultimately, I'm looking forward to having those meetings, having those sit downs to make clear why this vision would benefit all.
We went on your web.
He just said, I talked to business leaders and they said that it's too expensive in New York City to operate. And that's why it's hard to attract business. And so his response to that is, you're right. I'm going to raise taxes on you.
Yeah.
How the fuck does that make any sense at all?
Your profits are low because you don't have enough customers. Everyone's fleeing the city, right? So if you had more customers, your profits would go up and you'd be able to expand. So in order to get you more customers, I'm going to tax the fucking shit out of you. I'm going to take away all your money that you could possibly spend to expand, but you won't have, right?
Right.
And then when those new customers show up, look, if the new customers show up, if demand goes up, but the taxes are high, obviously you got to look at that equation carefully. I doubt I don't think that's how it's going to roll.
No. I said, it's so weird that was his answer to the question. Oh, they're worried about, leaving because everything's going to be too expensive. Well, I hear you, and I am going to make things more expensive. Oh,
for you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Website and realize there's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods.
Wow. What? Yeah. He's racist. He's a racist on top of it all. Great. He's a communist and a racist. I mean, first of all, we shouldn't be surprised in the year 2025 that a socialist is also racist against white people. Is that shocking at all?
Of course. It's interesting the way he frames it, because if you framed it that way, look, this is the way the white nationalists always do frame it with crime statistics. They're like, I'm not making a judgment here. I'm just saying, most of the violent crime is committed by black people.
Well, that's his answer he's going to give. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Which is
Totally.
very silly.
But
So,
if you framed it that way with any marginalized group, they would just have a fucking field day, right? They'd
Yes.
be shitting their pantses. But this
Well,
is fine for them, of course.
it really, well, here, I'll play his answer before I comment further.
Yeah, play it up.
Explain why you are bringing race into your tax proposal.
That is just a description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed. We've seen.
Now, look, if you just think of that, they just think this is Nick Fuentes sitting here, right? And he could say that exact same thing. He's just like, we're just looking at what neighborhoods have higher crime and which neighborhoods don't.
It would just be like, imagine if he had a proposal and he's like, we're going to make sure that we clamp down on black crime.
Exactly.
And she's like, shouldn't it just be crime? Why'd you say black crime? He's like, well, I'm just saying that, you know, that's just who's committing the crimes. I'm not saying we're going to go target black people. I'm just saying that's who it is. And no one would buy that. They'd be like, oh, that's really fucking sus.
This is invisible to them. They don't even see the stereotype.
It's so funny.
Time and again that this is a property tax system that is inequitable. It's one that actually Eric Adams ran on, saying that he would change in the first 100 days. He's since sought to defend it and lost at every juncture in court.
And I understand you're saying we're simply describing the types of neighborhoods that would see these increase in taxes. And yet, by invoking race, do you run the risk of potentially alienating key constituents?
I think I'm just naming things as they are. And ultimately,
This is exactly what the white nationalists say about crime.
So
isn't it exactly what they say?
It is exactly.
It's fucking perfect.
The thing that motivates me in this is to create a system of fairness. It is not to work backwards from a racial assessment of neighborhoods or our city. Rather, it's to ensure that we actually have an equal playing field. And right now, what we see with the property tax system is one that is overtaxing a number of New Yorkers and undertaxing others, and an inability of political will to resolve that.
So no plans to change that language on your website.
The focus here is to actually ensure a fair property.
He's like, I got a bunch of racists in my coalition. You think I'm going to change that fucking language? Of course not. Of course not.
How bad is it? Or how bad is it that the coalition he thinks he needs to win is that when he gets called out for this, he doesn't change it? Because like the normal thing, you'd be like, oh, like I didn't write this, some staffer wrote this, and we're going to change it because I don't feel this way, right? But he's not going to fucking change the language.
No.
After the controversy. And legally, this is retarded, because if he does become mayor and they do pass this tax increase for these individuals, it's going to be the easiest thing in the world for them to now sue the state or the city and say, what the fuck? We're being racially discriminated against. The mayor said he was taxing us because we're white.
Of course, yeah. They got a perfect
They're going to win that case.
Yeah, they are.
Property tax system, and that the use of that language is just an assessment of the neighborhood.
All right. You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Well, let me ask you about what Donald Trump, the president of the United States, has had to say. He's had a lot to say about your campaign. He called you a communist. Because he's the president, I want to give you a chance to respond directly to him. How do you respond? Are you a communist?
No, I am not. And I have already had to start to get used to the fact that the president will talk about how I look, how I sound, where I'm from, who I am, ultimately because he wants to distract from what I'm fighting for. And I'm fighting for the very working people that he ran a campaign to empower that he has since then betrayed. And when we talk about...
He's not a communist. He's just a socialist, okay? There's a huge difference. A massive difference. He also just doesn't think billionaires should even exist.
I completely disagree. It takes so much to make a modern economy work, and not every billionaire is some sort of tech titan, right? But all of the tech titans are billionaires. Like you develop products and services that work, and you're rewarded with money. So we need those people definitely. And how do you get it if you don't have billionaires?
Right.
How?
I don't know.
You
I sent
don't
you
get it. You end up like North Korea, where nobody comes up with anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
I sent you a clip that I want to bring up. It's a Twitter clip from our mayoral, our mayor candidate here. Yes.
Oh yeah, I saw this.
About the is he a communist or is he some inoffensive socialist, whatever that means.
Yeah, this is the mask off clip right here. All right, I got it up here. This is 1 minute 43 seconds. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
What the purpose is about this entire project, it's not simply to raise class consciousness, but to win socialism. And obviously raising class consciousness is a critical part of that. But making sure that we have candidates that both understand that and are willing to put that forward at every which moment that they have, at every which opportunity that they're given. We have to continue to elect more socialists. And we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism. There are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it's the end goal of ceasing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize, in the way that we set up our work and our priorities, that we do not leave any one issue for the other, that we do not meet a moment and only look at what people are ready for, but that we are doing both of these things in tandem, because it is critical for us to both meet people where they're at and to also organize for what is correct and for what is right, and to ensure that over time we can bring people to that issue. The ramifications of victory here is the difference between life and death for so many of our brothers, sisters, and family beyond the binary across this borough of Queens. It's the difference between having cash bail anymore or not. It's the difference between having sex work be decriminalized and not. And with every battle that we fight as socialists, we need to remember what the stakes are and ground ourselves in them and why those stakes are important and critical to us as individuals.
Oh my God. It's like, it's such a caricature. It's such a stereotype.
I know.
Oh,
there you go.
Man. And I thought Los Angeles was bad. Holy fucking shit. This is so
obsession
crazy
with ending cash bail is so fucking weird. It's so
well,
weird.
look, they empathize with the criminals. They believe every single criminal has been put upon by society. The
purpose is about this.
They can't get past that. They blame society for everything. So
yeah, but the whole point of
100%.
of bail is that, you get the money back. And if you can't afford it, you go to like a bail bondsman and they get the money back. But that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. It's so weird.
But look, I'm assuming there are people that can't get the bail bondsman because they're just a flight risk or they're indigent. They don't have any resources.
Well, people that are flight risk shouldn't be fucking getting out on bail. That's the point. That's the entire fucking point of bail.
Right.
They'd never accept that.
I think they think people are wrongly arrested and incarcerated.
Right.
They think the criminal justice system is racist and these people are not really criminals. They have no respect for the victim at all. They don't care. They don't give a fuck. They see the victim as Rich Whitey who lives in the big house and pays all the taxes.
Right. When in fact, in reality, most people are victimized by other black people or other poor people.
Yeah.
In these cases anyway.
Like going to bat. He's like, we got to go to bat for the hookers, obviously.
Yeah.
Like the prostitutes, we need to work on dignity for these whores. We got to make sure the whores have all their fucking dignity, right?
Right.
Like, just look at the priority list here.
It's pretty funny.
I mean, look, I want people to have affordable housing so that kids don't have to worry. They don't have to grow up in a world where they think, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to afford a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by kids, I just mean young people, right? Like 18. Obviously, when you're in your teens and 20s, you're worried most about the future. You want to know, I can make it. The world is not structured against me. So, but instead of that, he's focused on, we need to make life safe for the criminals, the degenerates of society. And look, and when he says everyone, he's like everyone, and by everyone I mean the bad people. This is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And when we talk about my politics, I call myself a democratic socialist in many ways inspired by the words of Dr. King from decades ago, who said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there has to be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And as income inequality has declined...
This fucking guy hiding behind Martin Luther King. Fuck you.
The distribution of wealth is based on the distribution of effort, though. There's
to some extent, obviously, people can, be nepo babies and inherit and shit.
There are plenty of nepo babies, right? And I'm not going to bat for the nepo babies, obviously. But you're hitting strays here when you talk about just all billionaires. All billionaires are not fucking nepo babies, right? There are plenty of people who... Yeah, exactly. There are plenty of people who work hard, put in an extraordinary amount of effort, become successful, start successful businesses, and become billionaires because they're workaholics. They succeed. Those people need to be protected. Those people are a national resource that we need to be conscious of. But that's a problem with these commies. They don't think about it that way. They think all billionaires are evil. Even his rant about seizing the means of production, right? They act like it's a turnkey business, like they can just walk in and press a button and be like, make money. There's so much that goes into a business that they're completely unaware of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a business takes constant maintenance, constant upkeep. And if you're not intelligent enough or have the right people working for you, that business is going to fall apart over time. So like seizing the means of production, a bunch of idiots seizing the means of production, right? Let's say we get 100 idiots together to go take over SpaceX. What's going to happen to SpaceX? What's going to happen, Sitch?
It's going to fall apart.
It's going to fall fucking apart. I don't... How can they say, oh my God, we need a more equitable distribution? They want the profits of SpaceX. They don't want to run it. Look, I'm in favor of social safety nets, so I don't mind a social safety net that helps people who are losers and can't succeed. But there's a big difference between that and restructuring society so no one succeeds. God, I hate saying that because it just sounds so cliche, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. He has a way. They do idolize the poor and idolize marginalized people and fucking despise the rich, despise anyone who is successful. It's this rampant underdog mentality where anyone who's done anything and become a success, they fucking hate and resent. And anyone who's been a loser and done nothing with their lives and fucking just been a complete degenerate, they're like, oh my God, you're God to me.
Nationwide, it has increased in New York City. And ultimately, what we need is a city where every single person can thrive.
All right, stay right there. We are going to take a quick break. More of our exclusive conversation. Let's talk about immigration, deportation. Are you committed to keeping New York as a sanctuary city?
Absolutely, because ultimately
Of
What's
course. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course he is.
We've seen that this is a policy that has kept New Yorkers safe for decades. It's a policy that had previously.
Plus, that's his fucking voter base. So, of course, he's going to.
Oh, my God. So
I think they
stupid.
made it legal so they can vote in New York.
Oh, did they?
Illegal. Yeah.
That's terrible.
I think they're trying to do it in LA, but I'm not sure it's passed.
Been defended by Democrats and Republicans alike until the fear-mongering of this current mayor. And it's a policy that we've seen ensures that New Yorkers can get out of the shadows and into the full life of the city that they belong to. And it's one that I will be proud to stand up for.
Well, you know, the border czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is planning to deploy.
So it says they did pass a law in New York City that would allow non-citizens to vote in local elections. But fortunately, New York State's courts said, no, that is stupid and unconstitutional according to the New York State Constitution, and though they got rid of it. So they did pass it, and then it got overturned.
ICE agents to New York, worksite enforcement.
New York City overturned the law that they could vote, but they could have. There's a couple elections that they actually voted in, right?
I don't know. It says this happened in 2024 that they threw out the law, or 2025 that they threw out the law. I don't know what year it passed.
When did the law? Okay,
Let me see.
that's kind of funny.
So there
'Cause I
might have
do-
been, yeah, there could have been. Some.
I heard people complaining about, oh yeah, they voted in a couple elections. So
They probably did because it probably took a while.
I don't know if this guy. I don't know if they voted in this guy's election.
Not his election, no.
Right.
Okay, here, I'm gonna jump ahead to this is the part that got clipped out a lot.
And ultimately, when I asked them what would it take to bring you back to the Democratic Party, they said a relentless focus on an economic agenda. And that's the campaign that we built.
Do you think that your apparent victory is a sign that there is an appetite for young progressives like a Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to run for president in 2028?
It's an honor to be endorsed by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and to have been represented by her for so many years because she's showcased so much of what we're.
Okay, sorry, this was the wrong part. Where
That's okay.
is?
I was
It's just kind of lame, but it was the Globalize the Intifada part.
Isn't this scary? Because I mean, this guy's totally going to win just because he's handsome and articulate. So
Yes.
this is
Is that this is a city for all of us. And what Tuesday night showed is that what New Yorkers want more than anything is a vision that binds us all together.
I want to ask you about an issue that has divided some New Yorkers in recent weeks. You were recently asked about the term globalize the Intifada, if it makes you uncomfortable. In that moment, you did not condemn the phrase. Now, just so folks understand, it's a phrase that many people hear as a call to violence against Jews. There's been a lot of attention on this issue. So I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that to have meaning have to be applied to all people. And that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think
So a complete non-fucking answer. I always love when it's like, is this bad that this thing happens? Well, I wouldn't say it. It's like, well, that's not what the question was. The question is it bad? Is there a problem with this phrase? Well, listen, I wouldn't use that phrase. No one's fucking asking you that, fucker.
These are exactly the type of situations where I think is the right better at condemning the racist far right than the left is better at condemning the wacko far left.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'm like, the right is better. If this situation was about race, I think the politician would obviously condemn the racist remarks. Here, he's completely walking the line so that he can keep these constituents.
Right, right.
And if it was happening on the right, everyone would say, oh my God, look, you're just catering to the fucking white nationalists, the ethno-nationalists. We know exactly what you're doing. But he does it, and the reporter completely plays along.
Well, no, she's asking follow-up right now.
Okay, well, let's see how far that follow-up gets.
It doesn't, spoiler, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I mean.
Issue.
Yeah.
and safety are things that, to have meaning, have to be applied to all people, and that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think that's the question and the outstanding issue that a number of people, both of the Jewish faith and beyond, have. Do you condemn that phase, globalize the Intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me, especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears, and I've had those conversations, and ultimately they are part and parcel of why in my campaign I've put forward a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%. I don't believe that the role of the mayor is to police speech in the manner especially of that of Donald Trump, who has put one New Yorker in jail who's just returned to his family, Mahmoud Khalil, for that very supposed crime of speech. Ultimately, what I think I need to show is the ability to not only talk about something, but to tackle it and to make clear that there's no room for anti-Semitism in this city. And we have to root out that bigotry. And ultimately, we do that through the actions. And that is the mayor I will be, one that protects Jewish New Yorkers and lives up to that commitment through the work that I do.
But very people.
So the answer was, I listened to people and they told me their concerns and I heard them. Okay, but do you agree? Is it bad? I listened to them and I heard their concerns and I will protect them.
Yeah, he's not going to condemn the language.
No, of course not.
Quickly, for the people who care about the language and who feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president, who is looking to do those very kinds of things, putting people in jail for writing an op-ed, putting them in jail for protesting. Ultimately, it's not language that I use. It's language I understand there are concerns about. And what I will do is showcase my vision for the city through my words and my actions.
Let me ask.
Guarantee he supports hate speech laws. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. How is he going to increase all of this funding for anti-Semitism if it doesn't involve hate speech laws? What the fuck?
Yeah, it's a good point.
He's going to spend a bunch of money to fucking go after people who are saying nasty shit online. While I stand behind free speech. Such bullshit.
It's also a total punt and dodge. Yeah. Because you can say, I don't like the phrase. I don't think it's a good phrase. People shouldn't use it without saying it should be illegal. No one ever said that you saying you don't like the phrase means that it becomes illegal. That's a retarded fucking response, or dishonest response, I should say.
That's a great point too, because this is why the question is important, because she's basically asking him to put his reputation behind making that speech uncool, right? Censoring it socially, not legally. And he's basically saying, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at all. I think it's great.
I wouldn't use the language, but.
Right. I wouldn't use the language, but in private I might.
Right.
You broadly.
Okay.
You're surprised.
The rest of it's boring. But.
Okay.
Super chats.
Oh, yeah.
Let's read some super chats. Cameraman 502 for $20. Thank you. Sorry, I missed this. Says there's one more way to get a nationwide injunction. When a federal agency takes an action, it's subject to the Administrative Procedure Act, which allows district courts to set the action. Executive orders without agency action is dead letter. That's true. That is true. That's another way. Okay. Starting from the top, Wit Gribitis. Thanks so much for being a free will seeker for 1 entire year. Look at that. Says hail.
Sweet.
Jose Calejero for 24 months, 2 years. Thank you so much for being 2 years of a free will seeker. Says, I relish the brief moment when the leaderboard rewards my brilliance before I'm eventually overtaken by super chats. Keep fighting the good fight. Well, thank you.
What am I at here? Oh, I'm 40. What, 44? Holy shit. I'm barely in there.
Wow, you're dropping.
I know.
Goro Cero, thank you so much for the 38 months. Being a free will seeker. Oh my God. Says, I don't know whether FD signifier is intentionally funny, but I do know you guys cannot have chicken and water waffles. Oh my God. Waffles with a guy, lest I become a racist like him. Terrible, Goro. Terrible.
Well, I mean, the consensus is that FD is completely racist. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Short side goblin for $5 says, as an engineer, it doesn't make sense. Even the slightest shifting of the rock could comprise the integrity, not to mention Iranian building codes. There you go. I would agree.
Yeah, totally.
God Joke for $10 says, unrelated today, but I saw the FD stream late and you guys let him off the hook too easily. His P plus P equals R is mostly unchallenged, and you softly granted that anti-black racism is greater than anti-white when they are equal. I mean, I don't agree. I think we had a huge, I feel like most of the conversation, or at least, hours of the conversation was about the concept of, P plus P equals R being stupid, and how racism against white people is racism and bad.
Yeah, and I only granted that one was less than the other for a thought experiment. So, but he wouldn't even engage in the thought experiment. I mean, I was trying to give him
I
was trying to throw him a bone so he would fucking engage, but
sure. I mean, you have to grant, obviously, historically, racism against black people was way more significant than racism against white people today.
Yeah, obviously, but you got people like John McWhorter and Glenn Lowry coming out and saying, look, they think the situation helped them more than if they were white. So things have completely reversed
nowadays.
Now.
Yes. Right. True. Yeah.
Look, and I think FD signifier falls into that category, obviously.
Japanese name, I don't know how to say, but thank you for $10. Says, love you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for the $10.
God Joke for another $10. Thank you, God Joke. Says, I do like that you had him on, but the only difference between FD signifier and Fuentes is in the demeanor in which they express their hate for the other group. They are equally as evil, just one sounds nicer. There you go.
Which one sounds nicer? No, I think FD is comparably charismatic to Nick Fuentes. So,
Blonde for $5 says Nick Fuentes says he refuses to be drafted into the military to die for Israel, which is why he wanted Don't Ask, Don't Tell to be reinstated. There you go. I like it. That's pretty good.
I mean, wouldn't that help? Wouldn't that make it easier for him to get drafted, though? Because he wouldn't have to
he would tell. That would be the joke.
Oh, I gotcha.
I'm assuming Bond's telling a joke. I don't think he actually said that. But
right.
Mr. Rivercross for $10 says, suing on behalf of an unborn person is a dicey move. You want the Supreme Court to certify the unborn children as legally persons. Pro-choice people may be shooting themselves in the foot. Well, we already talked about that later. I think that was before we started talking about the Tim Pool thing. So
yes.
I already laid out why I don't think that applies. Memes Brand for $5 says, I find it ironic that the left-wing ACLU now has a class action lawsuit to grant rights to unborn babies. I don't think it's the precedent they want. There you go. Well, we talked about that too. I guess the Tim Pool's video was persuasive.
Very popular.
And popular before we talked about it. Yeah.
Very persuasive. It's what people want to believe, Sitch. I'm telling you.
Yes, it's true.
We got to put a little chart together, a little flow chart, and come up with things that people want to believe and then that are true. Obviously, the true column will be a lot smaller, but
right.
Maybe we can intersect some that are true that people want to believe, and we can hit those points over and over again, right?
That'd be smart.
I mean, I think wokeism is cancer is true, and people want to believe that.
Let's get the flow chart out.
That's one of them. I think that's one that we do hit quite a bit already. So, communism is bad.
It wasn't just Tim Pool; it was everywhere. Oh, really? Interesting. Okay, so it was a common talking point.
So Tim Pool used it from elsewhere. Interesting.
Yes, interesting. Well, they're going to be so sorely mistaken when that doesn't happen. Means Perfect Jar says, I hadn't seen the Tim Pool video before the stream. Well, there you go. It was everywhere then. I only saw it from Tim Pool, so serves me wrong. Drew the Dogman for $2 says, I believe a class action was filed the next day. Yes. I thought it was actually filed the same day, but you can be correct. It was like basically immediately after they went for it. So Brian for $5 says all the dissents were not good. Even they didn't talk about the case on hand or just didn't understand it. Yeah. Yeah. Cameraman 502 for $2 says, I made a typo on my super. The courts can set aside. Yeah, that's what I thought. I
Did you fix it in the $20 one?
What? I don't know. I read it and I interpreted it, I think, the same way.
Okay.
Blonde for $2 says, birthright citizenship why we can't deport Hassan. I know. Listen, I'm in favor of changing it. Okay. I'm in favor of changing it.
By any means necessary.
No, not quite.
Okay.
Brian
Sitch
for $5.
Pragmatist.
Yes. For $5 says you have to get the states to ratify it. Never going to happen, but yes, that's the right path. I understand that's the difficulty is getting the states to ratify it, but that's the point. That's the point of our Constitution. You got to, the whole thing is that the Republicans or people on the right, the conservatives, supposedly, would always criticize the left, saying we don't live in a democracy, we live in a republic, and they get all up in arms because they say, well, it's important to create that distinction because you don't want to have 51% of the people can vote to subjugate or do something against the other 49%. That you have to follow, the government has to follow the restrictions and laws and rules set out by the Constitution. And part of the restrictions, laws, and rules set out by the Constitution is, how it works to follow the Constitution and amend the Constitution, and you have to follow it.
Rules.
Not just when you happen to agree with it.
I'm a rule breaker. I don't know about you, Sitch. Are you?
I'm not a rule breaker. Okay, I'm a good boy.
Look at this.
I always bring my shopping cart back.
Sitch is like, I know you are.
Yes.
But we could still be great, the best of friends. It doesn't matter.
There you go.
People can still get along. Is Sammy G a rule breaker or is she a rule follower?
Sammy G wants to burn it all down. Okay.
She is a rule breaker.
She's a little chaos gremlin.
My wife is a rule follower.
Oh, wow. Look at this. We're in inverted situations.
Opposites attract. Yeah, it's true.
There you go.
I constantly am shaking my head. Oh, man. Fucking rule followers. Rule followers.
Mm-hmm. Lethal Strain for $10 says, I get this $10 back if Trump wins. There you go. Listen, there you go. Lethal Strain. That's fine. That's fine.
Well, if Sitch was making the rules, you would, but I'm making the rules.
Oh, wow. I was willing to give it back, but Adam's saying no.
Right.
No.
Well, if that's the rule, obviously I got to break it. So.
Right. Blonde for Jar says, did you guys read the supers from the start of the stream? We did not, but we did now. Ace for $5 says, good example of the far left's anti-whiteness causing real world problems is the mistreatment that Jews are facing in the wider Western world. Yes. One of the things I really don't like is that the mainstream media refuses to understand or look at it through the perspective of anti-white racism, which it is. They really need to start taking anti-white racism seriously. Lethal Strain for $2 says, speaking of Roe v. Wade, check your DMs. Kansas law surrounding child support payments for unborn children. What the fuck? In Kansas, they're trying to make it so you have to provide child support for unborn children now, not just children that are born, but unborn children. Wow. How do you feel about that?
Well, the mother probably needs it more when she's going through her pregnancy.
Well, there you go. So you're
imagine. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be in favor of it. I'm just saying it's pretty ironic that they do probably need the child support. Just look, if you don't have children out of wedlock, okay?
Sure.
The time to have kids is when you're married and you've got support, financial support.
People against the bill are claiming that this is some kind of sneaky way for them to try to sneak personhood for unborn children into the law through somehow the way that they worded it. So
everyone's being sneaky.
Everyone's being a little sneaky snake. Lethal Train for $2 says winner gets $20 per judge that doesn't dissent. I like that. That's funny. Lethal Train for $5 says if they can't be drafted by the U.S. citizenship by their oh, I already read that one. I don't know why my brain couldn't like process the words. T-Rex Trucking and More for $5 says actually the argument at the time is that this amendment is not to be misconstrued to grant citizenship to the children of illegal aliens. Yeah, the argument is that, as I said, the argument is that because there was no classification of illegal aliens at the time, because there wasn't such a thing, that therefore the law couldn't apply to them. And then the counter argument would be, well, the conversation wasn't about that. It was about what did the word jurisdiction means. And if it means, as the court ruled, and the people who were arguing about it at the time seemed to understand, if it just means existing within the bounds of the country, well, then that's what it means. And any law that comes in afterwards does not override, like changing who can be legal, who can be illegal, does not change a constitutional amendment because the Constitution has supreme authority.
Yeah. That's why they call it the Supreme Court.
That too. Blonde for $5 says the end scene of Lethal Weapon 2, but an immigrant holds up a card and says birthright citizenship. Trump shoots him and says it's just been revoked. There you go. There you go. Remember that? Lethal Weapon 2, the bad guy diplomatic immunity.
Yeah. Are you going to
Shoot him
see
anyway.
the Lethal Weapon reboot?
No.
No.
No, I'm not.
You're not ever going to see it?
I'll never see it.
Okay. I mean,
I have no desire to see it.
It looks like it could go either way, obviously.
There is a remake I'm not sure about, but I hope it's good and I will watch it. They're remaking Running Man. Did you see that?
No.
It's coming out this year, The Running Man. That was an Arnold film, very funny, very campy.
Yes, yeah.
Big fan of The Running Man back in the day.
Maybe they can get a Arnold cameo in it.
They will probably try to get an Arnold cameo
with Richard Dawson.
Yep.
The big movie that's coming out this month is Fantastic Four.
And Superman.
And oh yeah, Superman too. When's Superman come out? You know?
I think the 4th, doesn't it? Or this week.
Is it really? Oh wow.
Superman comes out. Release date. No, 11th. I was incorrect.
They should have mashed it up with the 4th though. Truth, Justice, and the American Way, right?
They should have.
Aren't they downplaying the American Way now? Isn't it like I think
James Hollywood.
Gunn, I think James Gunn came out and said he was going to play down the American Way thing.
Mm-hmm.
Truth, Justice, and the International Way. Oh my God, please make it stop.
You know, I saw who the guy that got for the new Running Man remake, who's like the game show host. And I didn't really recognize him. They should have got Steve Harvey to be the host.
Oh, that would have been good.
That would have been very good.
Because he is a game show host.
Because the original guy, the original Running Man was what's his name? The famous
Richard
game
Dawson.
show host.
Yeah,
Richard Dawson.
Family Feud from Family Feud.
Yeah, so they should have got Steve Harvey from Family Feud, right? That would have been hilarious. Though maybe you don't want to do it, but that would have been great.
That was a great meta joke at the time. Yes, I did see The Running Man in the movie theater because I'm ancient, but because obviously Family Feud was a family show, right? And Richard Dawson cursed like a motherfucker in that movie, which it was like a big shock.
And gets murdered by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, gruesomely.
Yes.
So yeah, that was like a big, oh my God.
Right. That's it.
Because you could immediately imagine Richard Dawson being very nice on the set of Family Feud and being a just fucking sweary asshole behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Or Drew Carey. That would have been funny too if they could have dragged Drew Carey out.
Drew Carey would have been good. Definitely.
That would have been good, yeah. One of them.
But not Jim Carrey.
No, that would have been cringe as fuck.
Jim Carrey should play the Running Man.
No, Jim Carrey would be, in Running Man, there was like the wacky guy in the electric suit who like sung opera while he was trying to shoot electricity at Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm.
That's Jim Carrey. Okay.
Who is playing the Running Man in the new remake?
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright is making the movie?
I think so.
You're kidding me. Really? Holy shit, now I'm super excited.
Edgar Wright is making the movie, yes.
He's the guy that did Scott Pilgrim and The World's End and
Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Yeah,
and
Hot Fuzz. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm excited to see it.
Fuck yeah. Holy shit.
Is that good?
I've gone to the movies with Edgar Wright.
There you go.
I have.
Really? You've gone to the movies with Edgar Wright? Okay.
Yeah, I saw Hot Fuzz with him.
Interesting.
And I also saw The Room. Oh, hi, Mark.
Okay.
Well, Edgar Wright hosted a showing of these movies in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I got you.
That I went to, that he spoke at.
Right.
He wasn't sitting next to me. I was sitting next to my wife and friends. So.
Okay.
But it was still cool.
No.
I mean, it was super
Right.
cool. I had never seen The Room before. So the first time I saw The Room, I got to see it with Edgar Wright.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't get it. This movie sucks. Like, what the fuck?
What do you mean? That's the point.
I know, but I really wasn't in that. Like, everyone else had a Rocky Horror vibe to it, obviously, a showing of The Room. It's like a live showing of The Room. Who gets that? Who does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I had never seen it before, so I wasn't in on the joke.
Right.
I was just like, man, this is the worst fucking movie ever. But they did show Hot Fuzz after that, which was great to see Hot Fuzz in the theater.
If you can bring that Hot Fuzz energy,
Of course.
that'd be good.
I like The World's End a lot too, but a lot of people don't like it. So
I did
but
not
look,
like The
it's got
World's
the
End.
robots, so I'm a sucker
Okay.
for robots. I like the subject.
I thought
matter.
it was too depressing for me.
I'm a sucker for the irony too. The irony that
Okay.
like we're making your lives better by force.
Mm.
Come on, it's a liberal project, Sitch. You gotta love it.
There you go. Panzer Dude says, I've had dinner with Adam.
Mhm. Really?
Yeah,
When?
I'm sure all the time. What do you mean? Whenever he's listening to us while he's eating dinner.
You're right. I remember.
Yes.
We're having dinner right now.
right now. Exactly. Having lunch
Yes.
or dinner. I did it okay for $5. Says immigrants are jurisdictionary beholden to their country of origin. If you're from Brazil, you're still beholden to Brazil laws. Well, that's not what jurisdiction means, and the court hasn't ruled that. If you're a Brazilian tourist or an illegal alien and you come to America, do you have to follow America's laws? Yes. If you don't follow America's laws, do you go to American prison? Yes. So you're under the jurisdiction of America.
But
That's true
look,
of every
all
country
this
that you go to.
all this is going to change in the next 3 years, and I'm going to win $100 when it does. So be conscious of that.
Right.
I was so excited by Edgar Wright directing the movie that the question that I was really asking was, who is playing Arnold Schwarzenegger? Who's playing the Arnold Schwarzenegger character? Dwayne Johnson?
Glenn Powell?
Glenn Powell. Who
I'm
the
not really
fuck
familiar
is
with
that?
him. He was in the Twister remake.
Glenn Powell. Is he like a big buff dude? Oh, this guy? Oh, he's pretty good. He's a good actor.
I don't know if I've seen any of the movies he's been in.
Oh, he's been in a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
I think he was in Top Gun. He played Iceman in Top Gun.
Oh, okay. I never saw that.
Yeah.
But
You didn't see Top Gun?
I did not, no.
You gotta
Terrible.
see that, man.
Electro for $20. Thank you, Electro. Says if Trump keeps using executive orders like this, future presidents are going to keep on using the same tactic to get what they sort of want for months or longer. The judicial branch will have problems keeping up, especially if the president does multiple executive orders. Maybe. We'll see.
I don't think people have the same moxie as Trump does. I find it hard to believe that they're going to keep this sustained energy. I understand what people say about once a power is taken, people will constantly use that power. I'm not sure that's the case. We'll see. Though.
Brian for $10 says the question of constitutional personhood to unborn babies is left open since the overturning of Roe, since it's possible that this question could be determined that unborn babies are persons. That is true. It is open. It hasn't been decided yet. That is true. Neil Johnstone for 23 months says, to all my fellow Americans, happy 51st State Day.
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but it's cool.
I did it okay for $5 says clarification. If a Brazilian citizen committed a crime in the United States, they could be deported or extradited back to Brazil. Well, they would be after they go to prison. If you're not American and you commit a crime in America, you will go to American prison first, and then you'll get deported.
Yeah, you can commit crimes inside the United States from abroad. They do it all the time through cybercrime, and they look to extradite those people and put them in an American prison, right?
Right. Oh, the happy.
So look, all those people are subject to our jurisdiction. So therefore, when they have kids in those other countries, those kids can be American citizens.
There you go. The happy 51st State Day is they're making fun of Canada. Apparently it's Canada Day, which I didn't even realize. So people
I thought
were
that's
saying,
what it was. I thought
okay,
that might
so people
be
were
it.
saying happy 51st State Day. There you go. That's pretty funny.
This comes out November 7th.
The Mongolian leprechaun surf man from Saturn. Oh, I'm so glad, by the way. You know, it's interesting. So Zero Fox had reached out to the YouTube, response account on X about his name, being censored because they changed the names on Sunday.
I saw
and
yeah.
They said it was a feature, not a bug. They said this is going to be a new thing and everyone's going to love it. And it's going to be awesome. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible.
People
but today,
did not love it.
It's back. So either that little bot account that was replying was full of shit, or more likely, they're like, everyone fucking hates this change. Are you insane? And they changed it back.
Yeah. You can't put a space in your name. You can't make a sentence. It's like, what?
And what's this? Why would you want to see an ugly at before your name, like constantly? What's the point of even showing that? Stupid. The Mongolian leprechaun surf man from Saturn for $5 says, hey, Sitch and Adam, I just wanted to let you know that the Akita Inu are way bigger than the Shiba Inu. They can get anywhere from 90 pounds to 130 pounds. Wow.
Oh, okay. So make sure you get the big one. You want the Akita.
You want the... Rick, did you turn my son into an Akita?
Yes.
The Mongolian leprechaun Superman from Saturn for $10 says, by the way, Sitch and Adam, are you guys going to buy System Shock 2 remaster? It's co-op, and I think it'd be very entertaining, hilarious playthrough to listen or watch on your media channel. Maybe.
Yeah, we should play a game. We haven't done a game in forever. And people really like the D&D.
We got to do Vanilla WoW.
Yeah, I guess that's the next one. Yeah.
Yes. I've played BioShock, but I never played the original System Shock, so maybe we'll check it out. Brian for $5 says, now you get it, Sitch. Now you will see we are a constitutional republic. Got to make that distinction. I will say we are a constitutional republic only when it makes my arguments. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I get the gloat. The Mongolian leprechaun Surfman from Saturn for $5 says, Sitch and Adam, I've recently been watching a lot of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It's amazing. I'm currently on season 4. I would definitely recommend. Yes, I think Deep Space Nine is the best of the pre-new Star Trek series, or at least it's my favorite of the pre-new Star Trek series. I mean, obviously, the new Star Trek sucks. But I think Deep Space Nine is my favorite.
Huh?
I like it more than Next Generation. I like Next Generation, but I like Deep Space Nine more. It feels less dated than Next Generation because of the way it's structured. The way the story is structured. My only problem with Deep Space Nine is I really do not like the ending, but I like it overall for the most part. And I think it has the best introductory episode to Star Trek. Because usually the intro episodes in Star Trek are terrible. Brian for $5 says, I'd like to take a moment to gloat on being rated #1, just like the USA. I am #1 in everything. Awesome. There you go.
Still #1 too.
#1
hanging in there.
Lethal Strain for $2 says the Kansas law went into effect today. Wow. Well, there you go. Today. Interesting. I'll see. Well, I guess we'll see how that all plays out.
Is that for the birthright citizenship thing?
No, it's for the making people pay, uh, making fathers pay for pregnancies or while the woman is pregnant. Child, paying for the child.
Wow.
Mr. Bacross for $20. Thank you.
Do they do a paternity test before, like after the child is born, or can they do one before the child is born?
I
Like,
don't
what if you
know the
pay a
answer to
bunch
that
of
question.
money and it's not really your kid, and the kid comes out and it's some other kid, some other guy's kid, and you've already paid all this money? You're like on the hook for the paternity.
Let's see. Paternity test while pregnant.
Would you get a refund? Be like, hey man, send a bill to the real father.
It says they can do it. Yes.
Oh, okay. So
yes, they can do it invasively or non-invasively. So they can actually do it by measuring like the mother's blood. I guess they don't have to do it even by checking the baby. Interesting.
They can't. Your DNA doesn't go all the way into her blood, though.
They're saying it does.
What?
I didn't know that. They're saying it does.
Okay.
Well, they're saying
like
when
the baby's
not that your DNA, it's the baby's DNA is in the mother's blood when she's pregnant, and they can check it that way.
Oh,
That's what they're saying.
The baby's DNA is in the mother's blood. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, which makes sense. The baby's like inside of you and attached to you, right?
Yeah, but I thought the systems were, because a lot of times babies can be born without catching the diseases and whatnot of the mother. So I thought they were like two separate systems.
I guess not. Well, not 100%, but interesting. Mr. Ubercross, thanks so much for $20. Says, despite what Lethal Strain is saying, unborn children don't have federal standing. True. I disagree with you, Sitch. You don't have an interest in an uncertain future event. You don't have an interest in someone else's rights. That doesn't make sense to me, because what you're saying is then you would have to have, if the government passes a law that a lower court says is unconstitutional and they never appeal it, that doesn't make sense to me logically, that you would say, okay, well, that means that forever, if you want to not be subject to this unconstitutional law, you have to just keep suing the government. That doesn't make any sense. That seems ridiculous. I mean, I assume you agree that would be like an incredibly absurd way to have a legal system set up. And then also they could just kind of cheat, so they never have to go to the Supreme Court if that's the case. Memes Ran for Joe says the Top Gun sequel is in my top 5 movies. Go see it.
Yeah, you should see it on 4th of July. That movie's
maybe I will.
Rah America. Seriously.
Everyone says it's a good movie, so
it's amazing. Yeah, you should see it. And it will be even more interesting after the Iranian nuclear facility attacks, because it's very similar. Well, no, obviously it's completely different, but they are going for some kind of nuclear facility in the movie.
God's Joke for $2 or for $10. Thank you. It says, I mean, FD signifier to the normie sounds nicer. I know you guys push back against P plus P equals R, but I feel that a normie would take the conversation as you granting P plus P equals a valid secondary definition. Oh, maybe interestingly, yeah, maybe that's a problem. I don't think of these conversations in terms of like normies listening to us. So maybe I should take that into consideration. That's okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is a good point.
Kiwi Farmer for $15 says, hello, gentlemen. If you're looking for low-hanging fruit, look up Surus the Skeptic. They're a commie VTuber with a criminal history. They love the potential new mayor of New York City. S-Class. It's the S-Class.
Yeah, I don't like that guy, so we could definitely cover him.
Oh, you're familiar with Surus?
Yeah, I think he used to make atheist or anti-theist content. So I've had some run-ins with him in the past.
I'm looking at his channel now. I don't get the appeal of people who they're men, Okay, they're not even trying to be trans or anything. So they have a very, they have a masculine voice, and they have a VTube avatar that's like some hot lady with tits with her tits out. It's like Dr. Girlfriend times 1,000. Like, why does
That's what
anyone
everyone wants you to do.
Why would you
That's
want that?
exactly
So
what everyone wants.
weird. Why the fuck would anyone want that? You're like, oh, I
because they
want to
like
look at
staring at your
something.
boobs. They want to stare at your boobs during the show.
Doesn't that make you feel like uncomfortable? You're like, oh, I'm like attracted to this visual thing, but the voice is like Sitch's fucking whiny ass voice.
No, I'm not.
Does that make any sense?
It's horrifying to me, but look, I'm saying what other people want.
Okay, it doesn't make sense.
I'm not those other people.
Right.
The heart wants what it wants, Sitch. I don't understand it.
Okay, that's fair. I see that they didn't like Sarah McBride's interview, which is hilarious. It makes perfect sense if they're a radical leftist. So, because Sarah McBride was trying to be as moderate as humanly possible.
That was a great interview. Yeah.
Yes.
Of course they hated it.
Zoke for $2 says, Sitch has Deltarune brain rot. No wonder he's addicted to hyperlink blocked. Now, I do wonder if Sitch actually played the game and it's not just watching YouTube videos of Deltarune. Also, favorite character so far. Of course, I've played the shit out of Deltarune. It's not as good as Undertale, obviously, but I do like it. I got sucked into the whole, after chapter 4, I got sucked into the whole of like all the insane lore. And actually, I've been thinking a lot about, because I think, me and Adam, we do want to write more stories. And when I play Deltarune and when I watch To Be Hero and all these other things, they're very good at like creating mysteries that I think draw the viewer and audience in to like want to know more. And so I think that's like important information of like, okay, how do I like translate this to my own work or my own potential future works? Because
so important.
It's so difficult. Because me and Sam watched an anime last night, which name escapes me, but it was some Chinese anime that seemed really fucking interesting, but it was so mysterious and confusing that it's like you can't even like grasp what the fuck is happening. Like it's like you're detached from it.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah.
Right. And like the visuals were beautiful and the story seemed really cool and the world seemed cool, but it was just sorry. But it seemed too confusing. So it's like trying to find like that balance. So like, how do you make something? You have to give enough information that people are drawn in, but you can dangle enough, mystery that it's like, oh, where's this going? And Deltarune, I think, does that very well. Favorite character. Obviously, Lancer is the best character. Come on, no question. Fondue for choice. There you go. Obviously, my favorite character is Kara in Deltarune. Fondue for $2 says, how far is Slay the Princess on the GameCube? We should do Slay the Princess after. That should be second after Vanilla WoW. That's a fun visual novel I want to add in the play where it's just a game about making choices and you just have to decide whether you're going to kill a cute princess in a basement or not. Curious to see how Adam reacts to these moral dilemmas.
Is she a hobo?
She is not a hobo. No. No.
I might have to let her live.
I mean, you're gonna look at her and you're gonna be excited.
I'm gonna be attracted. Okay. She's attractive.
You're gonna like her, yeah.
Okay.
Sammy G said the anime I was talking about is called Lord of Mysteries. True. Okay, thank you. That's what it was called. Ace said that too. What the fuck? Is Ace spying on me? The fuck? Is he in our apartment watching us? That's creepy.
Only if you're trying to keep him out. Then it's super creepy.
Right. Ace for $10 says, Ace for $10 says, guys, Tiny didn't give an increase in Fuentes' career. At best, yay. In the 24 election gave him a little boost to be seen as a meme. Elon Musk is more likely cause of Nick being slightly more relevant. Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's why I thought it was ridiculous that FD. I mean, I think it's funny. I think it's hilariously funny just to needle Destiny, but it's obviously to me ridiculous that I think that Destiny is like revitalized Nick Fuentes' career compared to Kanye West palling around with him, and I agree with you. I think him being allowed to be back on X is like a huge boon to him too. So
Yeah, I just thought it was funny to needle Destiny, obviously. So, but I do also think that he's completely responsible for Nick Fuentes having any success at all.
Yeah.
And I think he probably got Nick Fuentes a bunch more white supremacist fans. I think a bunch of Destiny's fans probably turned white supremacists.
Oh, really? Okay.
During that whole character arc. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
It was interesting that when Destiny was talking to him, he ran a bunch of interference trying to kind of like soften up some of his positions. And then obviously that all blew up in his face. So
Destiny was trying to soften up his positions, or Nick was?
Destiny was like softening because people were like, how dare you talk to Nick? And so Destiny, in defending that conversation, even though he was criticizing Nick, was softening him up somewhat. Like as if I believe it was not softening up his positions. No, I guess it was. Yeah, he was kind of softening up.
Yeah,
his
he
positions.
made Nick seem completely reasonable. Yeah,
well, not completely reasonable, but he was softening him up, and I believe it's been a while, but I believe he was making it sound like he could change Nick's mind or Nick's audience's mind or something. So, and yeah, now it's weird too because now Destiny's own son is like a griper. So,
yeah, he changed.
That's not
Look,
good.
I rest my case.
Right.
I rest my case. More Destiny fans became groypers over that interaction than groypers became Destiny fans.
Perhaps.
Including Destiny's own son, obviously.
Right. Mayhaps.
So.
Yeah. Mr. Ubercross for $5 says, Sitch, you identified Sotomayor's concern. They were worried the executive would just not appeal. The result is exactly what you described as untenable. Well, I think that's completely valid. I think it's a completely valid concern. Yeah. Right. That's why it has to be, because if it's not just applying to people, if you have a class action and it's not just applying to people now, but also in the future, that's the only way to force the government to actually appeal it to the Supreme Court if they desire for, the executive order or whatever they're doing to stand. Electro for $5 says it's summertime here, so here's an Arizona update. Yesterday was a high of 117. Holy shit. And now the sky looks like someone used the oven improperly more at 11. That's crazy.
Oh my God.
That's crazy. At least it's a dry heat, though. Okay. At least it's a dry heat.
Is that climate change? Is that what's going on?
I don't know. That's pretty crazy, though. Ace for $5 says racism did radicalize the black community. Look how popular the Nation of Islam is. So FD is wrong even on that part. Yeah, one of the things I do wish I had brought up in the conversation is that when he was, criticizing, color blindness hasn't worked for 60 years and all this stuff. I mean, I think a big reason for that is, I mean, obviously it takes a while for people to not actually be racist. Obviously, it's not like, you had the government. It's like you can't be racist in 1967, and immediately people were not racist. Obviously, it does take time. There's cultural attitudes that have to change, so that's a big chunk of it. But then also, I think a big chunk of it is that there was a big push by a lot of people in the black community, not everyone, but a lot of people in the black community to say, fuck whitey, fuck society's out to get you, don't participate. And if that's the attitude and that's a popular cultural attitude, then obviously people are not going to succeed in society. So
I was trying to make that point. It didn't go over very well.
Right.
It wasn't allowed to make that point. It was too much of a gotcha.
Okay. That's true. That's
gotcha. The way it was framed. It was framed as a gotcha. So
that's true.
Winning the argument. Always a famous gotcha.
The Shogun for $5 says, I need Sitch to stop starting sentences with the term, I mean. Once you start looking for it, you will hear nothing else and it will annoy you.
There you go. Nailed it.
I would write I mean in my scripts a lot because I thought it was it was funny to me as a reference that I knew no one understood, and then it became part of my vernacular. Oh
no.
It was a reference to Alice's Restaurant, which I always thought was funny. So I'll try to watch out for it. I know I say I have a bunch of little like phrases that I say that people are like, oh my God, it always annoys me when Sitch says XYZ. He says literally.
I mean,
he says
literally.
Well too much.
There you go.
Literally. There you go. I was another one. There you go. So
I mean, literally. There you go. I haven't noticed the I mean. I noticed the literally and the there you go, but
right.
It doesn't really bother
I say
me,
right a lot too. Right. Ace for $10 says, I'm a super weeb. I only watch anime, so I'm up to date on whatever's being released. I make sure to watch older stuff too. So have Ace on both the main show and the franchise. I mean, Ace, maybe. We'll see.
I mean, we could talk to Ace on Thursday, but I don't know that we have anything.
Ace said he didn't want to come
planned.
on Thursday, I think. He sent me a message.
Oh, he did? Okay.
I don't, something about not coming on Thursday.
Now he's messaging you.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I completely misread it. He said, I think Thursday would be the best. Okay. I said the Ace, and I'll say this to you now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stream on Thursday. So.
Oh, nice.
So we'll see. If I'm available to stream on Thursday, we can have Ace on. If not, he's going to have to wait.
Make him wait.
Okay.
Well, I got a bunch of shit going on right now, so if we are forced to take a day off, it wouldn't hurt my feelings. So
there you go.
There you go. Literally.
There you go. Arrhythmus for $2 says, I hate the male voice with the female avatar too, but I have to admit some of Sammy G Sitch Chan drawings had me feeling a certain kind of way. Listen, I would look at those drawings and I had the same feeling, but I would not imagine my voice coming out of those drawings. Okay. Would it be weird? Okay. Here's the question. With AI now, I could 100% have it set up that I could talk into the mic in real time. It could translate it into a sexy woman voice and then project it to you. Would it be weird if there was a hot Sitch Chan VTube model that I had with their tits out, but when it was talking to you, you knew mentally that it's my fucking ass talking, but you would hear some sexy female voice? How would that make you feel?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'd probably just get used to it pretty quick and just start thinking, oh, this is a hot chick.
Oh, okay. So you'd be like, it's better. You'd be like, okay. Like you'd forget. Like your brain would forget after a while.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that it would be good for me or good for the show. Well, it might be good for the show. I don't know.
It might be. It might be.
People go to a lot of effort to do these avatars, and it might as well just be a still picture, because
people don't
even the mouth moving and moving around, it doesn't have any sort of emotional impact at all. It becomes invisible. It's just
I see.
Faceless. It's the same as a faceless.
They don't
channel.
Articulate. It's not the same as looking at a face.
It's not a point of interest. Yeah. Because on my face, you can see, oh, Adam's triggered, or Adam's sad, or tired, or people constantly even say that in the chat. They're like, Adam's tired, or Adam's stoned, right?
Right.
With an avatar, you don't get that, right? Even if the avatar has a stoned face, people understand that it's not mimicking whatever's going on behind the avatar.
I understand everything you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I might agree with you in terms of like, that's my view of it.
Mm-hmm.
But some of those fucking VTubers have insanely huge audiences. So obviously other people don't feel that way.
Well, or they're just interesting enough people that they're listening for the voice. Look, EFAP has an insanely huge audience, and none of them are on camera. So you can have a faceless channel with an insanely huge audience.
I guess. I mean, I'm talking about like, I don't know, the really giant VTubers are like way larger than EFAP or anything.
Oh, really?
And they're like those little girl and the girl in the shark suit and all that shit. Gura, or what? I don't even know how to say her fucking name.
Do they play video games? How do they?
I think they do. I
think
they
their
do a bunch
content?
Of different. They play video games and they do a bunch of different random shit. So,
I mean, maybe it is. Maybe you're right.
I like NUKE is very popular. That's true too.
Maybe it's the avatar. Maybe people are there for the avatar.
And they can't. Some of the avatars can change their expressions, so they have like the different facial expressions they could put on.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
another super chat.
Metalworks 411 for. Oh, you read it.
No,
you read it, man. No, you read it.
Nah, well, rigged VTuber emote. Really well, Adam.
There you go.
Better than me? No.
Not better than Corny.
Oh, of course. Corny's a star. Everyone loves Corny.
Exactly.
So look, if that's interesting, watching an animated character emote, yeah, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just not interesting for me. Maybe people are glued to it.
Right.
Hook it up. Do it.
Anyway, thank you guys for
anyways,
coming. Thank you for incredibly generous donations.
Maybe
there'll be a show on Thursday.
On
maybe there won't be.
Thursday.
We'll see. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you guys later.
Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Don't get deported.
Unless you're illegal, then definitely get deported.